In this world, money and power are above all. Harkin was betrayed by his friends for just $1 million. The woman who planned it laughed as he lost his best character. After that, he ran out of his house only to be found by Truck-chan. After almost making a visit to an isekai with goddesses and waifus, he returned to Earth a few years earlier, right in front of the tutorial of the most wicked game in the world. Inside the game, the mission begins in Woolbury Forest. Hidden in the woods, a wounded man struggles to catch his breath. Down below, a group watches as an executioner defeats several men in front of a squad of knights. Despite their efforts, the squad leaders wonder what to do since the main target hasn't appeared yet. Then the woman gives the order to kill the survivor. The executioner raises his giant axe for the finishing blow. The man on the ground just braces himself for the inevitable impact. Suddenly, a figure bursts forth at high speed. At the last second, Jae-hyun appears, stopping the axe with his bare hand wrapped in an aura of energy. Seeing this, the fallen comrades shout Jae-hyun's name in shock. The enemy group quickly recognizes him as Harkin and orders everyone to attack him at once. Without hesitation, Harkin charges at them, knocking them down with a single sword strike. As he walks among the fallen bodies, he asks if attacking him all at once would really make any difference. He then smiles and declares that they simply cannot defeat him. The man he saved apologizes to Jae-hyun, explaining that their group was caught in an ambush. But Jae-hyun cuts him off, asking why he's apologizing. He reaches out his hand to the fallen companion, helping him stand and assures him that it's fine. As the others watch, Jae-hyun insists the fault wasn't theirs. He points instead at the enemy leader sitting in the distance, calling her a pathetic loser for her lack of skill. Directly provoking her, he asks if she agrees, but the woman only stares back in silence. One knight mocks their friendship, questioning why they're acting so sentimental. At that moment, the woman, named Seer, stands and walks through the forest with her allies. She claims that even if they join forces, it won't make any difference. Harkin mocks her back, reminding her that she's always the one who ends up destroyed. Seer warns him to be careful or he'll regret it later. At the word regret, he smiles and looks down at the device on his wrist. With the command Uzlot on, the device begins to glow. A bright light surrounds Harkin, equipping him with full armor and a mask. Fully transformed, he declares that regret is something only the weak feel. Enraged, Suitor calls him an arrogant bastard and orders everyone to kill him. Harkin taunts her again, asking if she never learns, and says she'll never be able to kill him. Suddenly, his eye widens behind the mask. A blade pierces his chest, and he looks down in shock as his companions watch the scene unfold. The system announces a rapid loss of HP. He falls to his knees, confused, and hears an apology. The very man he saved reveals his betrayal, saying everyone has to survive somehow, and begs not to be hated for it. Lying on the ground, Jae-hyun can only stare in disbelief. Seer bursts into laughter at the sight. With a grin, she approaches and calls him stupid for letting himself be fooled by a fantasy of friendship. Leaning over Harkin, Seer says she will remove him from the game. She reveals her plan to kill him every time he logs in, preventing him from progressing. Mocking him, she reminds him he's a professional gamer with nothing outside that game. With a victorious look, Seer says it's a shame he has gone back to being trash. Jae-hyun's hand clenches the dirt tightly. With one last effort, he lunges at her, shouting for her to shut up. In the next instant, blood sprays into the air as both of them realize what just happened. Jae-hyun's body is pierced by multiple blades. Seer thanks everyone for their help. Dying in the arms of his betrayer, Jae-hyun asks why he was betrayed after everything he did for the guild. The man yells at him to just die already, revealing they were offered hundreds of millions to kill him. Still unable to believe it, Jae-hyun asks if it was all just for money after everything he had done for them. His last words question whether they weren't once a family, before he vanishes. The traitor and Seer only watch in silence. Moments later, the system displays a notice. He has died and received a 48-hour penalty. In the real world, a young man wakes up gasping inside his virtual reality capsule. The only thought in his mind is that he has lost absolutely everything. E-narration explains that the game Warlord became a massive global success. A live broadcast of the Red Dragon battle shows his popularity. In that virtual world generating unimaginable amounts of money, he was the best at what he did. A flashback reveals that, though people called him trash in real life, he was a skilled warrior in the game. The memory shows the moment a companion praised his incredible level. That same man then invited him to form a guild, in the only place where Jae-hyun ever felt he belonged. At least, that's how things used to be. Having decided to forgive them, he hurriedly gets dressed and leaves home. Running through the street, he promises himself he'll find and kill every last one of them. His phone rings. It's a call from Dongsu. He ignores it, wondering why he suffered so much just so others could live well. As the pedestrian light changes, a truck speeds toward him. He laments that if he had known how things would end, it all would have been different. The impact sends him flying. He realizes he never should have cared about anyone in the first place. Lying in the middle of the street, he hears someone scream after witnessing the accident. Next to his phone showing a missed call, he notices the irony of being hit by a garbage truck. Leaving heavily, he refuses to accept that he can't die yet. The image of the traitor who betrayed him for money flashes in his mind. He remembers the one who ruined him with a smile. His final thought is the burning desire to brutally take revenge on them all. Suddenly, a light shines and a connection screen appears in the darkness. The welcome screen for user Harkin is displayed. He opens his eyes, confused. A system notification announces the start of the tutorial. Survive against the Labyrinth Master Minotaur. Baffled, Harkin wonders if a tutorial mission like this really exists. Two other players shout for him to pull himself together. They need to bring down the creature together. Before them, the Minotaur roars. One player says the monster was designed to be impossible to defeat alone, asking Harkin to just hold the attack. Harkin recognizes the tutorial boss, but remembers it was removed 5 years ago for being too difficult. The other player looks confused. He explains that Warlord was launched only 10 months ago. Harkin is speechless. He processes the fact that only 10 months have passed. Meanwhile, the other players ask what's wrong with him. One orders him to get it together and stick to the plan. Ignoring them, Harkin begins walking toward the monster. Suddenly, he charges at the Minotaur as the others scream that he's insane. The creature charges to attack. One player shouts that he's going to die, but Harkin just stares at the monster, eyes glowing with a confident smile. With a single swing of his sword, Harkin strikes the Minotaur directly. The beast collapses to the ground, completely defeated. The two players gape in disbelief, asking if he really killed the monster with one strike. Then they exchange glances with faint smiles. One of them turns to Harkin, extends his hand, and praises his incredible talent. The scene reminds Harkin of the invitation to join a guild, offered by the very man who once betrayed him. His gaze hardens with determination at the memory. Turning to the two players, Harkin announces that he has made a decision. Confused, they ask what decision he means. At that moment, light begins radiating from his sword. Without warning, he slashes at both of them at once. Blood covers his face as he smiles and declares his new vow. If he ever trusts anyone again, he'll be nothing but a dog, because the hero slayer Harkin has just regressed in time. In the real world, a young man sits down and removes his virtual reality helmet. With wide eyes, he begins to recognize where he is. Moments later, he realizes he's inside a V-Gear store surrounded by other people. A memory strikes him. 5 years ago, when he had no money and used to play on the store's demo devices. The realization finally hits. He has truly regressed in time. With that, he removes the helmet completely. Determined, the young man rushes through the crowd. He has things to do now. His mind races, reminding him that he possesses 5 years' worth of future knowledge and experience. Without hesitation, he runs to the counter clerk. Holding out his card, he declares that he can now exact his revenge and asks for the basic V-Gear model. The clerk takes the card while he leans on the counter to catch his breath. A smile creeps onto his face as he plans his first steps in the game, ignoring her presence. Moments later, the woman informs him that his card doesn't have sufficient funds. The news leaves him frozen and speechless. An awkward, forced smile forms on his face. He then realizes that if he had money, he wouldn't be playing in a store in the first place. Unsure what to do, he knows earning cash now would take too long. Just then, a holographic ad pops up, asking directly what he's waiting for. The advertisement claims the strong never fear challenges and that hesitation is a luxury in battle. Soon after, the top-ranked model Seer invites him to become a war sovereign. The ad ends with a call to start playing Warlord right away. Staring at the screen, he remains silent for a moment. The memory of Seer calling him trash makes him nod in grim agreement. With that, he turns away, deciding it's not the time to stand still. Sometime later, the scene shifts to an apartment at sunset. Inside, a V-Gear capsule has been installed. A technician confirms the installation is complete and leaves, while the young man only nods. Alone in the room, he holds a card while thinking about the fastest way to get money. The card turns out to be from a loan service for Warlord players. In the next scene, a loan shark confirms he can lend him the 10 million won he requested. The man smiles but adds a small condition. With a sudden motion, he slams a knife into the table, pinning his fingers in place. The loan shark warns him that if the money isn't repaid, his life will turn into hell. The young man remains silent, sweating under the pressure of the moment. Without hesitation, he crumples the loan papers in his hand. As he puts on the V-Gear, one thought drives him forward. He's willing to fall into hell itself. Inside the capsule, the system begins the connection process. His motivation is crystal clear. All he wants is revenge on those bastards. He screams for the connection to complete as the system identifies the user. After confirmation, Harkin receives the welcome message to Warlord and appears inside the game world. As he observes the familiar scenery, a notification congratulates him for completing the tutorial, and the name Eri comes to mind. From the sky, a blonde-haired woman descends, wrapped in an aura of light. She introduces herself as Ariadne, confirming his memory as she offers to guide his career. A bright light shines from her hand as she extends it forward. Ariadne instructs the adventurer to choose one of the basic classes. She explains there are 3, and the chosen skills determine future specialization. The first option is the warrior class, a frontline fighter recommended for those seeking action. Harkin considers it but dismisses it, knowing it becomes hard to play solo later on. Next comes the cleric, a supporter who heals and strengthens allies. He immediately rejects it. He states firmly that he won't be taking care of anyone, leaving only one option. Ariadne smiles and wishes him an enjoyable adventure. Moments later, a light surrounds Harkin as she casts the blessing of his chosen class. The system announces his basic class selection and teleports him to the corresponding tower. Inside a vast library, a voice welcomes the young seeker of knowledge. The guide of the magical path introduces himself as Gulko, the NPC for the mage class. Galko asks what kind of magic he wishes to learn. Hirkin replies that he wants dark magic. The two stare at each other in silence within the immense tower. The old mage misunderstands, asking if he meant earth magic, but Hirkin corrects him and repeats his demand for dark magic. Shocked, the guide questions how he even learned about it and warns that dark magic leads the user's soul to ruin. Despite the warning, Hirkin insists, if it's not dark magic, it's nothing. Trembling, Galko doesn't know how to proceed. Suddenly, his appearance shifts into a skull wrapped in dark energy. The skeletal guide reveals that it's been a long time since a novice chose that path. He instructs Hirkin to place his hand on the skill book if he is truly ready, but warns him to choose wisely. Without hesitation, Hirkin touches the book. The skeleton warns again of the path's difficulty. Hirkin interrupts, telling him to proceed. He is not like other novices. At this response, the skeleton bursts into laughter. He praises Hirkin as intriguing, saying it has been a long time since he met someone like him. A memory of a famous video from his past life surfaces, showing a lone necromancer defeating a boss by himself. Seeing that army of undead, he decides he needs that power now. With his decision made, the system announces that he has become a necromancer and has learned the skill Skeleton Fragment. He grins as he receives his first-class skill. Hirkin summons a skull fragment and throws it to the ground. Upon impact, the fragment begins consuming mana to take shape. Before his eyes, a skeletal warrior slowly materializes. As the blue-flamed skeleton stands before him, Hirkin declares that in this life, you will be a necromancer. Smiling, he says it's time to level up and searches for the training dungeon. But in the next moment, the creature completely collapses, its head rolling across the floor. Hirkin watches in silence, unsure of what just happened. A bluish energy crackles on the ground as a portal begins to form. The moment he steps through, a system message announces his entry into the training dungeon. Not understanding why the skeleton is different from what he remembers, he decides to open the skill window. The screen displays the details of the Skeleton Fragment skill, showing a proficiency of rank F. He quickly concludes that the problem lies in his low proficiency, and that he needs to level up fast. Suddenly, his gaze locks onto a presence approaching. 3 coal wolves emerge from the darkness, appearing at just the right time. Recognizing them as perfect test opponents, he summons the Skeleton Fragment again. With a command to advance, he hurls the glowing skull toward the pack. The fragment explodes in a flash of light right in the middle of the enemies. A skeletal warrior materializes, taking a combat stance as it detects the threat. The creature opens its jaw in a menacing display. For a moment, the wolves hesitate, growling at the new opponent. Smiling, Hirkin orders the skeleton to kill him. Immediately, the skeletal warrior charges at the 3 wolves. Impressed by its performance, Hirkin grins, thinking he'll reach the max level in no time. But the very next moment, the skeleton collapses into pieces before his eyes. Speechless, he stares at the scattered bones. The skull rolls across the ground until it stops at his feet, letting out one final rattle. The scene leaves him completely stunned. In desperation, he opens the skill window again, shouting that something is wrong. Reading the details, he discovers that the creature learns through combat and requires a default mode to be set. Relieved to finally understand, he immediately selects defense mode. The skeleton's eyes glow faintly as it receives the new command. Meanwhile, the wolves play tug-of-war with the skeleton's scattered bones. Not believing what he's seeing, Hirkin wonders what the special action mode could be. The system then informs him that the skeletal warrior has begun dancing uncontrollably with the wolves. Tears well up in his eyes as he realizes he's screwed, remembering the warning the guide tried to give him. Collapsed on the ground, he despairs, thinking he's going to lose his mind. A final notification states that a character cannot be deleted during the first 3 months. Surrounded by wolves, Hirkin panics at the thought of being stuck with this useless character, while the loan payments start next month. Holding his head, he laments that nothing ever goes right, just when he thought things were finally improving. Meanwhile, the skeleton throws random punches into the air, useless as ever. Irritated, Hirkin orders it to stand still, wondering how the necromancer from his past life managed to deal with minions like this. Suddenly, an idea strikes him. He reads the skill description, focusing on the phrase learns through combat. A memory resurfaces when he defeated the coal wolves the skeleton was watching. He realizes the creature learns directly from him. A confident smile spreads across his face. He calls the skeleton's attention, now holding a wooden club. Hirkin boasts that the creature is lucky to have such a genius master, one who would turn every member of his old guild into elite players. Then he tells the skeleton there's only one thing to remember in combat. With a clean punch, he teaches the first lesson. If you don't dodge, you die. Immediately, he knocks the skeleton down again and again, shouting at it to get up and try once more. The skeleton rises, ready for the next round of training. Hirkin attacks again, hammering the lesson into it with every blow. The impact sends the creature crashing to the floor. He then teaches it never to stay down after being hit and to always look for an opening to counterattack. When he asks if it understood, the skeleton seems to process the lesson. The creature rises again, now assuming a firmer combat stance. 2 wolves charge at it with snarls. At the last second, the skeleton dodges one wolf's strike. In return, it delivers a solid blow. Without hesitation, it counterattacks the second wolf and finishes it off. From a distance, Harkin watches as his minion stands tall amidst the fallen wolves. The skeleton turns to him with a hint of pride, but Harkin scolds it for losing focus in battle. With a faint smile, however, he admits that the last move wasn't bad. Moments later, the system announces an increase in skill proficiency, and a golden light envelops them both. Harkin approves of the skeleton's performance just as another notification informs him that his player level has gone up. The next stage of his journey begins in the novice village of Figus Castle. As he walks through the square, Harkin hears other players recruiting and thinks that in just a few more days, he'll be able to solo the training dungeon. With that goal in mind, he decides that the real challenge starts now, his focus set on reaching level 10. Suddenly, a voice calls out from behind. A man grabs him by the shoulder, demanding an apology. Harkin recognizes him as nothing but a thug. Exasperated at the interruption, he sighs, wondering if he should just kill them. The man, angered by the sigh, swings forward with a punch. The sound of impact echoes across the square. But at the last second, a blonde man appears, catching the aggressor's fist. With a smile, the newcomer tells him that doesn't give him the right to hit others. The thug demands to know who he is and whether he's with Harkin. But the blonde man answers, not exactly. Harkin stares at him, recognizing the face of the man who has just arrived. Harkin's attention shifts to the muscles of the newly arrived man. Then he studies the warrior's smiling face and confident style. With that, Harkin recognizes him as ManhwaCapped, the highest-ranked warrior from his past life. He immediately wonders what a player of that level is doing here. ManhwaCapped shows his irritation as both Harkin and the aggressor watch. The thug tells him not to interfere, claiming it was Harkin who attacked first. Shep responds with a smile, saying he understands the logic of an eye for an eye. In the next instant, an intense aura bursts around his body. The aggressor freezes in place, while Harkin shields his face from the overwhelming pressure. Shep, still smiling, remarks that the man's fist just landed in his palm. Then he stares at him and adds that, for that reason, he should return the favor. One of the thug's companions screams in panic, warning that this is ManhwaCapped. He explains further that Shev is the guild master of the Red Bulls, infamous for his love of fighting. The aggressor can barely process the information, unable to understand why Shev is here. Shev steps closer behind him and asks what his answer will be. The thug remains paralyzed, silent before the question. Moments later, he and his companions bow an apology and flee in a rush. Shev smiles and comments that he's glad everything was resolved with words. He then approaches Harkin, placing a hand on his shoulder, advising him not to worry. Harkin immediately slaps the hand away. He declares that he won't need Shev's help from here on. Turning his back, he walks away, leaving Shev surprised by the reaction. Shev only watches him leave, murmuring to himself about how cold the boy is. As he walks quickly, Harkin fumes at having been intimidated by the warrior's power. He looks at his own hand, remembering the moment of weakness. Then he clenches his fist tightly. Harkin swears that the next time they meet, he'll be a completely different person. The scene shifts to a lone torch lighting the wall of a dark cave. Inside, Harkin sits alone, reflecting on the vast gap in strength. He concludes that to achieve his revenge, he must become stronger, since Seer and Shev have comparable skill levels. Behind him, a stone tiger roars fiercely. At once, his skeletal warrior charges and strikes the creature's head, shattering stone in the process. A system window announces that the skeleton has slain the coal tiger and leveled up. The skeleton approaches Harkin, who mutters that it took him 3 days to reach level 10. At his words, the skeleton slumps, leaving Harkin puzzled by his reaction. The system then congratulates him for reaching level 10 and transfers his rewards. A war clock materializes on his wrist, containing all the game's functions. Smiling, Harkin tests the new item and opens his status window. The screen shows that his attributes have been renewed. He is now officially a level 10 necromancer. Another window instructs him to spend his accumulated status points. Harkin reflects that he must be careful with his first allocation. Normally, a necromancer would invest in intelligence or mana, but he decides to put every point into strength. Instantly, an aura surrounds his body as the system confirms his strength has increased by 50 points. The display shows his total strength at 53, while Harkin studies his hand with a smile. The skeleton watches him with what seems like shock. Later, Harkin finds the skeleton sulking in a corner and questions it. He taps its head and explains he hasn't given up on being a necromancer. He's just teaching. Harkin insists that by boosting his strength, he can pass down the skills from his prime. The skeleton stares at him as Harkin admits he's betting everything on its growth. When the skeleton perks up, Harkin orders it to focus only on training. With a grin, he adds that there are other ways to make up for lacking attributes. The scene shifts to the Infiltrators Association at Figus Castle. Inside, an adventurer shows off a newly acquired mission card. Harkin observes the other novices scrambling over low-level quests. He approaches the clerk and asks to see the remaining mission list. The man agrees but warns him that only the difficult, unwanted ones are left. After analyzing the cards, Harkin confirms they are indeed terrible missions, yet he smiles faintly, realizing this is exactly where his opportunity lies. With a victorious grin, he finds the mission he was looking for. Eliminate all monsters in Bhima Mountain for a reward of just 10 gold. The clerk questions his choice, but Harkin confirms it and the system registers the new quest. His plan is to complete this seemingly simple task before reaching level 15. By doing so, he can obtain this super rare title prospect. He knows that unlike other titles which give fixed bonuses, this one is unique. The prospect title boosts intelligence and mana by percentage. With it, he intends to kickstart the creation of his overwhelming character. Decision made, he turns to leave. Outside, he declares that the first step is getting equipment. The scene shifts again to the rocky, imposing Bema Mountain. Soon after, Herkin looks at himself with sheer disdain. He now wears a full jester's outfit with bunny ears and wields a plain sword. Marching through the forest, he pulls on the floppy ears of his hood and screams in frustration. He recalls not having enough money for leather armor, leaving him with only this humiliating outfit. Even though he hates it, he resolves to rush through the quest and get new clothes as soon as possible. With that in mind, he sprints through the forest. After some time, he stops in a quiet clearing to observe his surroundings. Suddenly, a bloody hand emerges from a bush as a wounded man crawls out begging for help. The man pleads once more before his hand drops lifelessly to the ground. Immediately after, sinister figures step out of the shadows, watching with malicious smiles. The scene shifts to a new player named Multi celebrating his arrival at Bema Mountain. Clad in full armor, he proudly declares the start of his journey. Boasting about already being level 11, he brags about his skill in the game, until he hears a desperate cry for help. As he approaches, he finds a man in distress beside an injured companion, pleading for aid. Nervously, Multi steps closer as the man explains that they were attacked by an unknown monster. Barely escaping with their lives, they now have no healing potions left to treat the wounds. Moved, Multi offers to help and opens his inventory, receiving immediate gratitude. The man keeps thanking him, promising they will certainly repay the kindness. But while Multi is distracted, a massive figure suddenly emerges from behind and strikes him with a club. Falling to the ground badly wounded, he hears the man coldly thank him for his help. Soon, the supposed survivors gather together, revealing that they'll make good use of the items he dropped. Multi realizes too late that he's been tricked. The man scolds him for saying such harsh words. With a cruel smile, the group's leader calls him an idiot for falling into such an obvious trap. Immediately, the system announces the death of player Multi as the group loots his belongings. Another message states that his player's watch will be dropped and the item falls to the ground beside his body. One member comments to the others how fun it always is to deceive rookie players. The leader of the PK villain guild, the Ralph family, then orders them to look for their next prey. Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, Herkin's skeleton is surrounded by tree wolves. The beasts rush in together to attack from a distance. Herkin simply commands it to switch to attack mode. The skeleton charges forward, glowing with energy. With a single sword strike, it cleaves one wolf in two. Herkin watches as his skeletal warrior slaughters the entire pack, concluding that now, with a sword, the monsters are no match. He reflects that equipping the skeleton first was the right decision. Even proud of his choice, he laments his own appearance, insisting that a real player values utility over looks. The skeleton seems to look in with pity, prompting Herkin to ask what it's thinking. Ignoring the silent stare, he orders it to follow so they can grind levels and clear the area quickly. Just as the skeleton prepares to move, something flashes in the forest. An arrow slams into its head, catching it off guard. Herkin spins around, shocked to realize they've been attacked. They find themselves face to face with a group of players who apologize for the accidental shot. Their leader explains that he mistook them for a monster from a distance. He continues to apologize profusely, but Herkin only stares back in silence. Then Herkin notices the man's wristwatch and the bloodstained potion he's holding. He instantly recognizes them as the same PK group that preys on other players. With a fake smile, Herkin says he'll forgive them if they compensate him with a mana potion. The leader claims he has none, but offers to help him level up so his mana will naturally recover. Feigning agreement, Herkin pretends to accept the offer. The leader assures him it's the least they can do. At that moment, tree wolves appear, and the leader suggests it's the perfect chance. He instructs Herkin to finish the monsters after they weaken them. Leaning toward his companion, the leader whispers to confirm he remembers the plan. The strategy is simple. The fighter will lure the monsters closer, the mage will cast a buff spell on them, and then they'll redirect one strengthened monster at Herkin, pretending it was a mistake. The beast charges ferociously, while Herkin feigns panic in the face of the incoming strike. The group grins maliciously, convinced their target will die, but their smirks vanish in shock. Herkin and his skeleton are calmly standing atop the defeated wolves. He comments casually that the situation could have been bad. With a smile and a thumbs up, he encourages them to continue. The group exchanges uneasy looks, whispering about the skeleton's strength. They wonder if Herkin's level is higher than it seems and quickly plan a new tactic. This time, they decide to send several monsters at once. Herkin keeps pretending to panic. While he appears distracted, the fighter sneaks up from behind, preparing to strike. Believing victory certain, the man swings his club with all his might at Herkin's back. At the last second, Herkin dodges. The attacker is left completely stunned. Before he can recover, Herkin strikes him down with a swift sword slash. From a distance, the group's leader watches in disbelief as his companion collapses. Herkin then calls his skeleton, snapping his fingers to issue a command. Together, they charge at high speed toward the remaining survivors. The leader and the mage scream desperately, begging him to stop and talk. Without hesitation, Herkin and his skeleton cut them down in unison. With their final strikes, both enemies fall at the same time. Standing over the corpses, Herkin mutters that he knows exactly what kind of people they are. He adds that they stab those who trust them in the back just to steal everything. Approaching the leader's fallen body, Herkin says that if it were his old self, their tactic would have worked. The man begs for his life, offering items, but Herkin only replies with a cold sorry. Raising his sword, he declares that he no longer trusts anyone. Without hesitation, he executes the last surviving member. The system announces the death of player Ralph and the drop of 8 watches, leaving Herkin surprised. With a grin, he decides he'll put the recovered items to good use, starting with new clothes. Meanwhile, the skeleton begins kicking one of the fallen corpses. Turning to it, Herkin asks if his precious skeleton would like to claim something for itself. Herkin transfers an item that is absorbed into the skeleton's head in a burst of energy. The skeleton equips new garments and raises its sword in a gesture of celebration. Seeing his summon's joy, Herkin asks if he really liked it that much. Now dressed in a new dark outfit, he remarks that appearances don't matter in the game. Then he strikes a pose, adding that what matters is what's inside, leaving the skeleton confused. With a smile, Herkin explains that the war watches they picked up were the real jackpot. When selling another player's watch, a random item from that player's inventory drops. That way, they obtained rare items such as enhanced pants and a sword. In addition, he also gained skill books and a large amount of money. Thanks to these resources, he reveals he was able to craft a special item. He then shows the mask he managed to create faster than expected. Herkin explains that from now on, he will record his gameplay and building a strong identity is essential. His expression turns serious as he stresses the importance of identity. In a memory, he suggests to a guildmate that everyone should wear a ha-ho mask to go viral. He recalls the moment he decided to name his guild Ha-Ho Mask. Though he considered creating a completely new identity, he holds the mask silently. Then, imbuing it with energy, he declares that he won't let anyone steal from him again. With determination, he states he'll use the mask to prove he was right. Placing it on, he calls his skeleton to set off together. Their journey leads them to the entrance of a dungeon among the rocky formations of the mountain. Crossing the portal, the system confirms entry into the Bima Mountain cave. Inside, Herkin comments that he expects to find blue werewolves here. Smiling, he declares that with his new equipment, he plans to clear the dungeon in 10 minutes. He and the skeleton then advance into the dark passageways. Hours pass inside the cave. Herkin appears later with an expression of utter disbelief, shouting in frustration at the empty area. He demands to know why there are no monsters. Wondering if it's a bug, he grows more annoyed when he sees the skeleton training on its own. Suddenly, something unusual on the ground catches his attention. He and the skeleton crouch to inspect a dark trace of energy. Before them, a massive portal of shadow opens, radiating overwhelming power. A system window announces the discovery of an instant dungeon, and Herkin realizes why the monsters were missing. He recalls that instant dungeons are random events that disable the normal area until completed. They are notorious for being twice as difficult but offering far greater rewards. The greatest problem: once inside, the only options are to complete the challenge or die. Herkin considers that the rational choice would be to walk away, since death means 2 days of lockout. Yet he hesitates, staring seriously at the portal. With a determined smile, he decides to enter, saying he just needs to clear it. Crossing the threshold, a crushing pressure weighs down on his body. Moments later, he and his skeleton appear at the center of a ruined coliseum. With the skeleton behind him, Herkin comments that the place is creepy and wonders what will appear. Suddenly, an overwhelming presence manifests, sending chills down his spine. A giant werewolf with a third eye on its forehead emerges before them. The status window identifies it as a corrupted werewolf of unknown level. Herkin is stunned by the word corrupted, not understanding why such a creature is here. The beast lashes out with its claw, launching both Herkin and the skeleton across the arena. Thrown back, Herkin feels the pressure of the blow amidst the scattering rubble. The skeleton lands safely and immediately turns to face the beast through the dust. Drawing its sword, the summon charges forward. Meanwhile, beneath his mask, Herkin wears a faint smile. From atop a broken wall, he laughs, explaining that corrupted monsters are tied to the main storyline. Leaping back into the arena, he joins his summon. With a grin, Herkin pulls out a strip of dried meat, warning that if they don't kill the beast, there'll be no dinner. Together, they charge at the werewolf. The skeleton reveals a much larger sword than before. Herkin uses it as a springboard, vaulting himself high into the air. From above, he dives to strike the monster. As the creature roars up at him, he commands it to be cursed. Dark energy gathers in his hands. Channeling it into his blade, he activates Demon's Curse. The werewolf is engulfed in the ominous aura, confused by the unfamiliar power. Herkin lands with his strike, forcing the beast to stagger back. It roars in agony as the system announces Demon's Curse has reduced the target's attributes by 10%. Observing the result, Herkin remarks that the skill isn't bad for a first attempt. But in response, the werewolf radiates raw fury. It roars again, unleashing an even heavier pressure across the arena. The system mourns. The creature has entered rage mode, all negative effects nullified. Herkin concludes grimly that it won't be so easy after all. Smiling, he decides to use the trump card he had been saving. His eyes gleam as he activates a new ability on his war watch. At once, shadow energy erupts, pouring from his body. It condenses on the ground into an unstable sphere, pulsing with power. The sphere then explodes into a column of flames, engulfing him completely as he prepares for the next stage of battle. One of Warlord's unique features is the special ability known as Slot On. When a player uses it, their body is temporarily empowered with strength drawn directly from the game world. With it, a unique enhanced form manifests, amplifying combat abilities. This new appearance varies drastically from player to player, reflecting their distinct natures. For this reason, most users simply call the ability Supreme Mode. Herkin assumes his new form and gestures for the enemy to attack without hesitation. In response, the beastly creature charges forward, jaws wide in a furious roar. Immediately, it leaps at Herkin to begin direct combat. The monster's claw comes crashing down, glowing with destructive red energy. Herkin dodges the first strike, but is forced to block the second with his weapon, creating a violent shockwave. He lands hard and slides back across the ground. The creature slams its fist into the earth, shattering the floor and sending rocks flying. Even from a distance, Herkin realizes the boss monster's speed and strength are overwhelming. It could kill him with only 3 hits. The beast roars again, preparing another devastating blow. Despite the grim situation, Herkin smirks. Blue flames surge from his body as he charges the enemy head-on. The impact makes the creature howl in pain and stagger back, its chest slashed open by the precise strike. Grinning, Herkin remarks that challenges like this are what make the game fun. But his smile quickly fades as the monster grows even larger and stronger, smashing the ground and sending him flying with a shockwave. Covering his face, he curses himself for forgetting the creature's enraged state. Regaining his stance, Herkin steels himself once again for battle. Provoking the beast, he asks if it isn't forgetting something too. At that moment, a skeletal warrior descends from above, landing on the battlefield. The minion charges the monster to join its master in combat. Herkin shouts for the skeleton to execute the move they have practiced together. The creature eyes them with confusion, unable to understand the new tactic. The duo leap back in perfect sync, creating space for their final attack. Together, they unleash a blast of energy straight at the target. The combined strike hits the monster dead on. A system notification confirms the corrupted werewolf has been slain. The ability deactivates and Herkin reverts to his normal form, remarking that the result wasn't bad at all. As the battle ends, a mission card spins in the air before revealing its contents. The card confirms the completion of the Bima Mountain Cave quest, with a reward of 10 gold coins. Soon after, a notification declares that the skeletal warrior has slain a powerful monster, raising its skill to rank E. The system then displays the dungeon rewards, golden items, causing master and minion alike to celebrate their victory. Among the items is the corrupted tracker's necklace, a violet crystal accessory with unique stats. Herkin is stunned to see that the item is a unique chronicle, a tier above standard unique items. But his expression changes as he reads the requirement to equip it, wondering what the title corrupted tracker means. A system window opens, revealing that 3 new titles have been registered to his profile. The first, Promising Rookie, the one he originally expected to earn by completing the quest. The second, Challenger of Heroes, fitting for clearing the instance dungeon alone. And finally, the third, Corrupted Tracker, leaving him completely speechless. Herkin recognizes the name as the opening title of the main storyline's first chapter, The Count of Corruption. This quest forms the backbone of the entire game universe, the central narrative of Warlord. Because of its extraordinary rewards, the main quest is the most coveted content in the entire game. He recalls that in his previous life, he barely reached the 4th chapter, realizing that this wasn't just luck. With a victorious smile, he shouts to log out, convinced he's struck gold. The scene shifts to the real world, the sun setting over the city skyline. On a live stream, the Hydra Guild announces that they've reached the final chapter of the Count of Corruption storyline. Jaehyun pauses the video to analyze the news more closely. Sitting in his dark room, he watches in silence, his face slowly twisting into despair. His so-called jackpot wasn't what he thought. Slamming his head onto the desk in frustration, he curses the fact that someone is already at the end of the main quest, meaning he'll gain nothing if he enters now. Collapsed on the floor, he contemplates abandoning the current race and focusing on the next chapter. But then a thought strikes him, changing his expression. Climbing back into his chair, Jaehyun realizes this could be a huge opportunity. The whole world's attention is on the Count of Corruption, the first main quest about to be completed. What if, he wonders, a video related to the quest were released at this very moment? The views would be insane. He imagines himself drowning in money and fame from the sudden spotlight. Determined, Jaehyun begins editing his gameplay footage to upload as quickly as possible. Since editing is the key to success, he knows he needs one specific person. He sends a message to the one who, in his previous life, was known as the god of editing. Elsewhere, filmmaker Romani receives a notification on her phone while having a meal. She opens the request: video editing from a player named Herkin, only level 15. At first, she mocks the request, assuming it's just a wealthy newbie trying to flaunt himself online. But then her expression changes as another possibility crosses her mind. Romani leaps from her chair and rushes to her computer to review the footage. After watching the video, she sits in silence, eyes wide with shock. Her gaze brightens as she declares she has finally found her muse. The scene then shifts to a sprawling metropolis at night. Atop a skyscraper, a business executive gazes at the urban skyline while holding a tablet. An assistant approaches and she informs him that a video about the count of corruption has just been published. She shows him that a level 15 player managed to defeat a corrupted werewolf alone. The man explains that their team had already analyzed the footage, but she cuts him off, saying she liked what she saw. With a subtle smile, she simply states, "I want that." With an imposing presence, the executive orders her assistant to bring that player to her. Her identity is revealed as Che Seolian, ranked number 1 in the business world and heir to the Thunder Group. In the Warlord universe, she is known by another name, Seer, the Thunder Queen. The next day, An Jae-hyun stares at his phone in utter disbelief. The video he uploaded the day before had already accumulated an impressive number of views and positive comments. Shocked, he confirms the count has already reached 6,000 views in such a short time. With an ironic smile, he recalls how in his previous life, it took months to reach the same milestone. Suddenly, a notification from Romani pops up on the screen, proof that yet another thing had changed in his new journey. Jae-hyun finds it strange since the editor usually avoided initiating conversations to maintain his mysterious persona. After a brief exchange, he receives a sticker and immediately feels the urge to block the contact. The conversation continues with Romani cutting straight to the point. Lying back in his chair, he reads her question about when he can send the next video. Pensive, he admits to himself it won't be easy to find another monster as interesting as the corrupted werewolf. Even without a clear plan, he decides he must seize the moment and log back into the game. Eyes gleaming, Jae-hyun puts on his helmet and prepares for another Warlord session. Elsewhere, a man watches the video on his phone, recognizing the name Herkin of the Haho Mask. The warrior known as Matador comments that the player's movements are impressive, no matter how many times he watches. As he studies the screen, he murmurs that the player feels strangely familiar, until a voice interrupts him. A woman named Yahello from the Red Bulls Guild approaches with a serious expression. Shev explains he was talking about Herkin of the Haho Mask, but Yahello concludes the familiarity comes from him rewatching the video too much. With his face shadowed, he prepares to explain his real suspicion. Matador insists the player's movements are far too fluid for a beginner, and his necromancer skills are on an entirely different level. As he wonders what it would be like to fight Herkin, Yahello cuts him off with a sharp command. She pushes him, reminding him their livestream begins in only 5 minutes. With a wink and a grin, he thanks her for always taking care of things. She replies that the best way to thank her is to perform well in the presentation. A crowd of over 200,000 viewers eagerly awaits the start of the event. Matador takes his place on stage, ready to begin the show. He is formally introduced as the leader of the Red Bulls Guild. Before his companions and the massive audience, he is hailed as Matador Chev, ranked 9th in Warlord. A dungeon portal begins to materialize as a 5-second countdown starts. The clock ticks down while the portal fully opens. With a determined look, he turns to his guildmates and gives the final command. As the countdown ends, he raises his weapon and orders everyone to prepare for battle. The scene shifts to the Adventurers Association branch in Ficus Castle, where many players have gathered. Herkin scans the hall with a frustrated expression, realizing what he's looking for isn't there. Inside, he slams his head on the table, discovering that no suitable missions are available. Lying on the desk, he laments that all he finds are trivial tasks like hunting wolves and finding lost dogs. He concludes that he'll have to pause new video production for now. Suddenly, an older man approaches, recognizing him as the adventurer who cleared the Bima Mountain cave. Herkin lifts his head, trying to remember where he's seen him before. Moments later, he recalls and the man introduces himself as Houghton, asking for a moment of his time. In a private room, Houghton tells Herkin he's already heard of his recent achievements. He reveals that a mutant was discovered in the Bima Mountain cave. Herkin replies he doesn't recall such a mission, but admits to seeing a werewolf with strange eyes. With a serious look, Houghton confirms his suspicions. He explains there's a high chance the monster was exposed to the Corrupted's power, making Herkin shudder. Houghton continues, saying the Corrupted's true identity remains unknown as an image shows a hooded figure among beasts. He explains their power drives monsters into rage and many have already fallen victim to it. For this reason, the Adventurers Association has placed bounties on them. Houghton grips his arm firmly. Realizing it's a secret mission, Herkin eagerly volunteers to help capture the culprit. Though Houghton insists it's too soon, Herkin assures him he'll be fine and thanks him for the opportunity. Houghton finally agrees to give him a chance, mentioning someone named Ahimbri in Bangsu Castle. Hearing the name, Herkin's eyes widen with shock and excitement. Houghton offers to write a letter of recommendation, explaining that Ahimbri could teach him. Assisting system window pops up confirming the new quest: find a Himbri and receive a skill book. Outside the association, Herkin celebrates the successful negotiation with a loud cheer, drawing everyone's attention. With a victorious grin, he can hardly believe he's landed a mission to become Imbri's student. NPC Imbri is one of the 7 disciples of the great mage Boran, famous for granting the rarest skill books. Overjoyed, Herkin runs off, knowing he no longer has to worry about material for his videos. But suddenly, he stops in his tracks, his step firm. With a cunning smile, he remembers something important he must do before leaving. The scene shifts to tree branches swaying in the wind, marking the transition. In a forest clearing, Herkin prepares for what must be done before his journey. Smiling, he casts Skeleton Fragment, throwing a skull that glows with blue energy. A skeletal warrior materializes before him, as Herkin decides it's time to check the rewards from his last battle. He then uses the werewolf skull he saved to strengthen his minion. The system asks if he wishes to use the item, and he confirms without hesitation. Upon fusion, a notification states the skeletal warrior has gained werewolf traits, boosting its endurance. Next, Herkin equips the Corrupted Tracker's necklace, activating its effects. All of his stats, including class attributes, increase. Finished with preparations, he turns to his minion, who watches curiously. At once, he activates Skeleton Fragment again, clutching 2 more skulls. The 2 skulls crash to the ground, releasing the same glowing energy. The spheres erupt into blue flames, revealing the result of the summons. Beside the first skeleton, 2 identical warriors materialize, leaving him stunned. The original minion turns toward the newcomers, completely bewildered. Herkin informs the trio that from now on, they will fight together as a unit. While the first skeleton screams in protest at the new team formation, Herkin simply wonders what kind of monsters await in the region. Immediately, a level 25 forest bear appears before them, roaring menacingly. With a swift strike, the creature lashes out at Herkin with its paw, cracking the ground with the force of the impact. He manages to block the attack with his weapon, but is forced to retreat under the monster's overwhelming strength. The bear raises its paw again, preparing to crush him once and for all. Caught off guard by the beast's speed, he stumbles back, struggling to keep his balance. After drawing the monster's attention, Herkin grins and orders his minions to attack. The first skeletal warrior charges forward, leaping at the bear with sword in hand. Focused, the minion prepares its strike as it descends toward the target, but the creature shatters it with a single blow, scattering bones across the ground. Herkin scolds the minion for using such a predictable attack instead of striking the monster's blind spot. He immediately orders the next skeleton to continue the assault. The second minion leaps into the air, repeating the exact same pattern as his predecessor. Without effort, the bear smashes it as well, and Herkin screams in frustration at the result. The last skeleton stands frozen, staring at the remains. Herkin demands to know why it insists on copying the same tactic. Tired of the disastrous situation, he decides to intervene personally. But the final skeleton suddenly poses with a sparkle in its eyes, radiating unexpected confidence. Blushing in disbelief, Herkin watches, shocked at his minion's attitude. The skeleton leaps at the bear, surrounded by an aura of power. Smiling, it prepares to strike, utterly convinced its plan will succeed. And yet, it attacks the bear from behind in the exact same way as the others. Covering his face with his hand, Herkin can't believe what he's seeing. A roar of pure rage echoes through the forest, scattering birds into the sky. After the battle, the 3 skeletons sit on the ground, awaiting their master's orders. Herkin approaches the fallen bear, asking if his minions even have brains. He begins to lecture them on the logic of team combat. Drawing a diagram in the dirt, he demonstrates the importance of flanking instead of frontal assaults. The skeletons only tilt their heads together in confusion, not understanding a thing. Rubbing his forehead, he realizes that the skill rank boost from the necklace has created a new problem. The real challenge now is that despite being 3, they're unable to work together. Even though knowledge is shared among them, their lack of experience fighting as a team prevents proper coordination. He laments that despite costing 3 times as much mana, his minions are even worse than before. Still frustrated, he accepts it, noting he has at least reached level 20. He decides to pause combat videos for a while. He orders them to stand, declaring they'll train non-stop on their journey to ManhwaCapped. As they run, he reflects that he had hoped to relax and lead the fighting to his minions, like a necromancer should. With a bitter smile, he admits he won't be able to avoid the front lines for now. The party continues through the sunlit forest, moving steadily toward their destination. Arriving at the Adventurers Association branch in ManhwaCapped, they find the place crowded with players. Soon, an adventurer emerges from an office at the top of the stairs with a disappointed look. The crowd erupts in a frenzy, shouting that he has finally come out. They surround him aggressively, demanding to know what mission he obtained. Watching from a distance, Herkin compares the player's desperate behavior to that of hyenas. With his face hidden, he reflects that such people can be found everywhere. He concludes they're nothing but parasites who won't work hard and instead leech off others. A bald man approaches him, trying to negotiate quests, but Herkin dismisses him without hesitation. Climbing the stairs, he decides he can't allow anyone to learn about his mission to find Himbri. At the top, he hands Hoten's letter of recommendation to the guard. The guard confirms the document and grants him access to the second floor, leaving the crowd in shock. As the other players try to follow, Herkin ignores them, continuing on with a faint smirk. Alone in the corridor, he wonders what reward a Himbri might give for such an important secret mission. Hoping to establish a lasting relationship with the NPC, he knocks on the door and asks permission to enter. His expression changes instantly at the sight inside. The place is an utter mess, overflowing with piles of books. From within the clutter, a voice demands to know who he is and why he's there. The NPC at Himbri reveals himself, stating he doesn't recall having any appointment today. Startled by the mage's personality, Harkin introduces himself as the bearer of Hoden's recommendation. A Himbri examines the letter and remarks that, though he looks like a mere apprentice, he must be skilled for his level. Meanwhile, Harkin thinks only about the rewards. After a moment, the mage accepts and decides to grant him the promised prizes. Harkin receives 2 skill books, Bone Armor and Helmet of Madness. Overjoyed at obtaining such rare items, he can hardly thank him before Himbri ends the conversation abruptly. A system notification confirms the mission's completion, and the mage dismisses him curtly. Dissatisfied with the abrupt ending, Harkin turns back, demanding the next task. He chases after the mage, insisting he didn't endure everything just for 2 skills. In a desperate gesture, he reaches out his hand, offering to do anything. To his shock, the mage firmly grabs it. Himbri asks if he truly means anything to continue. Wearing a sinister smile, the mage thanks him for his eagerness, leaving Harkin bewildered. Immediately, a new quest appears. Bring back an egg from the nest, but it lists no reward. Realizing it's worthless, Harkin understands he's been completely tricked by the NPC. Outside, a knight clad in imposing armor walks through the crowd of players. As he passes, the others whisper in awe about how expensive his armor looks. The mag halts, staring at the association building from a distance. Fixing his gaze on it, he declares with certainty that this is the place he was looking for. He finishes his thought, revealing the truth. This is where the Haho mask is. Outside, Harkin stands silently in front of a massive locked door at the back of the hall. It dawns on him that he's been tricked by a mere NPC. Fuming, he glares at the mission window, questioning why he received a quest with no reward. Unsure, he wonders if he really needs to go through with it, until someone nearby suddenly asks. A man leans over Harkin, demanding sharply to know if he received a mission. In an instant, a mob surrounds him, shouting that he has a quest and that they should take it from him. Pinned to the ground, Harkin realizes he had completely forgotten about the other players and doesn't know what to do. He considers whether he should just eliminate them, but before he can act, a voice orders everyone to stand aside. A figure in armor steps forward, kicking the players away with a single strike. The knight approaches Harkin, still on the ground, and asks if he has a moment. Kneeling down, the man proposes that they talk in a more private place. Harkin studies him carefully, trying to figure out who this mysterious man is. Even so, he rejects the offer and tells the knight to leave. The man only presses further, politely requesting his cooperation. The knight steps closer and calls him by name, Lord Haho Mask. Soon after, the two are seen walking together through a deserted alley. The knight begins the conversation by apologizing for the earlier disturbance. Touching the side of his helmet, he explains that they couldn't talk properly before. With a tap, the helmet dissolves, revealing a man wearing glasses, leaving Harkin speechless. Though he assumes the man must be a high-level player, his face doesn't ring any bells. Adjusting his glasses, the man confirms Harkin's identity as the Haho Mask. Harkin clutches his cloak, preparing his response. Feeding ignorance, he asks who this Haho Mask is supposed to be. Unfazed, the man mentions the mission Harkin just received from the NPC Embry. With a sharp move, Harkin steps closer, demanding to know who he is. He challenges him to fight, warning that if he wants to continue, he should be ready to risk his account. Despite the hostility, Harkin simply waits to see what the man will do next. After a moment of silence, the man in glasses seems to reach a conclusion. He extends his hand and apologizes, admitting he must have made a mistake. Harkin grips the hand tightly and with a smile asks if he's afraid. Turning to leave, Harkin warns that he'll let it go just this once. The man watches silently as he disappears down the alley. A hooded figure appears beside the man in glasses. He comments that the one they just met wasn't their target. He didn't seem like a skilled player. Clenching the gauntlet on his wrists, the man rethinks the situation. He concludes that experienced players know better than to tamper carelessly with another's war watch. The woman at his side asks if they still need to monitor Embry since the Count of Corruption quest is nearing its end. Adjusting his glasses, he insists they can't take risks. The nest egg mission is the real priority. His companion nods, bids farewell, and vanishes into the shadows to return to her post. From a hidden vantage point, Harkin spies through a crack at the association building's windows. He confirms that the mysterious pair are indeed 2 people, not 1. He deduces they belong to an organization, but not an ordinary guild that would simply negotiate. Their method of testing him proves they aren't regular players. Even so, their identities remain a mystery. Later, the scene shifts to a sunlit forest in the mountains. Harkin sits on a stump, surrounded by his skeletons, having reached a conclusion. At last, he understands there is something much bigger behind the nest egg mission he received. He reasons that they must have seen his video, which is how they knew Haho Mask would receive Embry's quest. Remembering how easily they let him go, he concludes they don't care about his identity. But continuing the mission will bring him face to face with them again, which means he can't upload videos for now. Rubbing his face, he curses how troublesome people keep ruining his life. In his thoughts, he remembers Ceolian. Trouble enough on her own. Elsewhere, Secretary Park Suji approaches Ceolian, congratulating her on her work. As the woman steps out of a game capsule, Suji asks how the guild entrance exam went. Ciel even takes the water bottle offered to her, replying that all the candidates were garbage. Drinking, she complains that not one of them proved useful, intimidating her secretary. Changing the subject, she asks if there's any update on the Haho mask she mentioned. Hearing he may have joined another guild, Ceolian crushes the bottle in her hand. With a dark expression, she questions the possibility of him joining another guild. The secretary retreats, promising to reinvestigate, and is dismissed until she brings concrete information. Moments later, Ceolian takes a call, demanding to know what the chairman said. Her secretary bows her head, reporting that he has not spoken yet. With a subtle smile, Ceolian explains the reason. The president remains silent because Warlord is doing exceptionally well. She recalls how he once tried to force an arranged marriage on her when she first started playing. The secretary listens quietly as Ceolian orders her to prepare new candidates by the next morning. Shocked at the deadline, the secretary asks if it truly needs to be so immediate. Leaving the room, she mutters complaints about her boss's impossible personality. Far away, Herkin rises from the waters of a swamp, remarking it's been a while since he last visited. He and his skeletons scan the surroundings, identifying it as the Lizard Swamp. He concludes the mission must be here, since Imbri resides in Castle. Reasoning that it involves finding an egg, a monster must be a bird, reptile, or insect. Based on his current level, Herkin is certain the Lizard Swamp is the only possible location. Seeing the high-level monsters nearby, he calls one skeleton to use an enhancement skill. He reads the instructions for Helmet of Madness, which requires drawing a rune and casting a spell. With the command, Herkin activates the skill on his skeleton. Its eyes blaze as a red aura explodes from its body, enveloping Herkin. The transformed skeleton growls, and Herkin studies its new form carefully. At last, he prepares for a test, ordering the enhanced creature to attack him. A note in his skill window reveals the chance of the creature losing its sanity. Even so, he prepares for a test and orders the enhanced skeleton to attack him. The creature immediately lets out a roar and charges aggressively at its master. Faced with the unexpected reaction, Herkin realizes the skeleton has lost control. With a swift punch, he knocks the creature's head clean off. The skeleton's body collapses while the others watch silently. Herkin approaches the fallen creature and scolds it for daring to roar at him. Then he analyzes the situation, wondering if it's a game defect. He concludes the skill hasn't changed anything and questions if he's been tricked. Suddenly, a group of level 30 lizardmen emerges from the swamp waters. Smiling, Herkin remarks that test subjects have arrived right on time. A skill window pops up, revealing an increase in the creature's attributes. Taking advantage of the moment, Herkin activates bone armor to equip his skeletons. The bone warriors roar as a red aura intensifies around them. The lizardmen only stare, confused by the sight. Herkin gives the order to attack, and his skeletons charge the monsters. The first skeleton lands a direct strike on one of them. Another skeleton sneaks up from behind, catching its target off guard. With a swift blow, it takes the lizardmen down. Within seconds, the skeletons defeat all three monsters and Herkin levels up twice. Pleased with the results, he celebrates the success of the new skill. He then declares they will hunt monsters for a week in search of the egg. As Herkin prepares to leave with his skeletons, a woman secretly watches him from the forest. She smiles faintly before stepping out, petals swirling around her, and introduces herself as Ilya. Ilya proclaims she's a first-class beauty, explaining that everyone loves her no matter what she does. She brags further, saying her life is easy because her slaves always help whenever she pretends to be in trouble. Before she can finish, she trips and falls face first into a mud puddle. For a moment, she lies still in silence. Then, furious and covered in mud, Ilya stands and curses the place she's in. She recalls how one of her slaves had brought her here to help her level up, but he died soon after, leaving her trapped in the swamp. Looking for someone new to deceive, she spots a player fighting monsters. At that moment, Herkin pauses. Hidden in the brush, Ilya grins, believing she's found her next slave. She lets out a sharp cry, drawing his attention. Herkin finds her pretending to be in distress, begging for help. Ilya throws herself to the ground, claiming her legs were injured by monsters. She gazes at him, expecting him to be moved by the sight of a beautiful woman in pain. Without showing any reaction, Herkin simply turns and walks away with his skeletons. Shocked, Ilya watches him leave and screams at him for abandoning her. As he walks off, Herkin wonders how someone like her could be ignored, concluding she must be another lunatic. Furious, Ilya bites her lip, demanding how he dares to ignore her. Meanwhile, Herkin continues forward, attacking another swamp monster with his skeletons. In the middle of battle, he pauses and sighs, already annoyed. Even from afar, he can see Ilya now pretending to cry in pain. He recalls that ignoring her was meant to save time. Still, he notices she keeps following him, dragging herself across the ground. Herkin remembers other players who annoyed him and thinks they should just play the game. Deciding it would be quicker to deal with her, he turns and asks what she wants. She explains she dropped her sword in the swamp and asks for help retrieving it, promising to leave once he gets it. Ilya thanks him, swearing she won't forget his kindness. She then hides a sinister smile, confident her plan worked. Herkin spots the sword stuck in a small patch of land in the water. As they approach, Ilya thanks him again, but he reminds her of her promise to leave. Herkin orders his skeletons to fetch the sword. As the creatures move toward the item, Ilya watches intently. Feigning gratitude, she pulls out a crystal and sneers that necromancers are nothing without their summons. She charges from behind with a sword, shouting that he dared ignore her. The blade closes in on Herkin's head, but without fully turning around, he dodges and remarks she was too slow. Before she can react, he grabs her by the neck, leaving her speechless. With a single motion, he hurls her forcefully into the swamp. Ilya splashes into the water, screaming in rage as she resurfaces. She curses him, threatening that her bodyguards could easily destroy him. Grinning, Herkin points behind her. Confused, she turns to see what he means. Suddenly, several swamp lizards rise from the water right behind her. As she screams in terror, Herkin tells her she'll have to try harder if she wants to trick him. He sneers, calling her an idiot, and declares he saw through her intentions from the start. His expression hardens as he states he's sick of being deceived. Turning away, Herkin complains about the wasted time and calls his skeletons to follow. As they walk, one of the skeletons mimics Ilya's pose, practicing her charm. Herkin spins around and threatens to kill them if they keep picking up bad habits. Suddenly, a notification announces the player Ilya's death, and Herkin celebrates the unexpected points. He remembers her warning about bodyguards, smirking in disbelief that she'd really have any. Elsewhere, three men watch a recording of Herkin, right as he wagers his life that she doesn't. In the middle of a swampy forest, the silence is broken. One of the men lies on the ground, gravely wounded and struggling to breathe. Before him, Herkin and his skeletons stand while the man swears vengeance in Ilya's name. With the man subdued, Herkin decides to ask one last question before finishing things. He asks why the man would go so far for someone he barely knows, hinting he won't get anything in return. The fallen man only answers with a disturbing smile. The unexpected reaction leaves Herkin speechless. With a frenetic cry, the man reveals he does everything simply because he loves her. Not understanding the madness, Herkin ends it with a strike of his sword. He stares at the body with disgust, calling the situation a joke. Herkin then recalls Ilya's odd behavior when they first met. That day, she tried to trick him by pretending she needed help escaping a monster. As a result, he had tossed her into the lake without hesitation. He remembers her threat about bodyguards, something he hadn't believed at the time. The memory shows Ilya playing the victim to her followers who now hunt Herkin. In that recollection, Ilya cries to them, claiming a necromancer attacked her out of nowhere when she only asked for help. Because of that lie, Herkin now runs into fanatics like this one every day in the forest. Pulling up his hood, he grumbles that he's already frustrated about not finding quests, and now he has to deal with pursuers. He briefly considers hunting Ilya again, but abandons the thought to avoid more problems. Instead, he begins looting the corpse. Among the spoils, he collects gold, leather boots, and the rare necklace of promise. Analyzing it, he realizes the necklace is a super rare item worth a fortune. His spirits lifted, he and his skeletons celebrate the unexpected profit, thanking the fanatics for the gift. Just as he thinks about finally having a decent dinner, another follower spots him and shouts to alert the others. Unfazed, Herkin turns, confirming he's the one who killed Ilya, and welcomes them all. A massive group of her followers soon emerges from the forest surrounding the area. For a moment, the sheer number of enemies stuns him. As they charge, barking attack orders, he wonders how many truly exist. He can't believe so many people are obsessed with that woman who seems to lead their advance. Seeing no way out, he braces for the coming fight. Herkin commands his skeletons to prepare for battle. One follower confirms Herkin really summons skeletons and gets ready to strike. With a gleam in his glasses, he declares he'll use a special move. He charges with an attack called Power of Love. Herkin shouts back that such a skill doesn't even exist. After one of his skeletons is destroyed, Herkin realizes the enemies are stronger and that he can't fight head-on. Vowing revenge once he levels up, Herkin leaps into the trees to escape, while the followers receive orders to chase him. Even running through the dense forest, he can't shake them off. He understands escape is difficult at his lower level and decides his only option is to keep moving. Suddenly, his face fills with surprise as he notices something odd in the landscape. Stopping in a different spot, he wonders where he is, realizing the swamp here is unusual. It bothers him. After days exploring, he's never seen a black swamp. After a moment of silence, he reaches a conclusion. With a confident smile, Herkin finally understands what must have happened. Meanwhile, the pursuers grumble about losing him. One suddenly points ahead, shouting he's found one of Herkin's skeletons. The group comes upon the skeletons dancing in a clearing under a glowing party ball. Confused, Ilya's followers watch, not understanding the bizarre sight. One man grows furious, convinced the necromancer is mocking them after everything. Blinded by rage, he swears he won't forgive him and charges the skeletons. At that instant, a giant creature bursts from the earth with a thunderous roar. The man halts abruptly as he's grabbed, unable to believe what he's seeing. Before he can react, the creature's tongue coils around him. The other followers watch in horror until one recognizes the monster. Before them stands the dragon lizard, the level 40 boss of the lizard swamp. Hidden Harkin watches and finally understands. The nest of his quest is actually the dragon lizard's nest. Narration explains the monster is a powerful boss normally requiring 20 level 40 players to defeat. Harkin recalls that the boss had already been killed, so it shouldn't even be here. But it responds if someone with a related quest, like his nest egg, enters the area. The dragon lizard's presence confirms this is exactly where Himbri's quest was meant to lead. Sitting behind a tree, he wonders why Himbri sent a level 20 player to steal an egg from such a creature. Grimacing, he clenches his sword, cursing Himbri as a fraud for sending him on such a ridiculous mission. Luckily, he notes Ilya's followers and concludes he's gathered some fine teammates for the job. In the chaos, one follower yells the dragon lizard is too strong and they must retreat. From the shadows, Harkin snaps his fingers with a grin, declaring they can't. His skeletons blaze with red aura and block the only escape route. One man refuses to give up, insisting they just need to force their way through. As he tries, the dragon lizard's tail smashes him away, while the others despair with the beast behind them. Amid the panic, they spot Harkin leaping through the trees and shout that the necromancer is fleeing. With a triumphant smile, he thanks his teammates for their sacrifice as the monster ravages the group. Once far enough, he decides it's time to act. With the path clear, Harkin rushes toward the nest. He lands inside with ease, smiling in victory. Soon after it, he emerges, thanking everyone for the egg he just secured. But his expression suddenly twists into confusion as he halts abruptly. Back at the nest, he realizes in horror that the egg is nowhere to be found. In disbelief, he searches frantically, certain it must be there. After rummaging, he finds only a stone-like object marked with a glowing purple sigil. Suspicious, he studies it but concludes it looks more like a rock than an egg, and there's nothing else in the nest. Suddenly, a notification warns that his last skeleton warrior has been destroyed. He knows his time is up. The dragon lizard must have sensed the intruder. Moments later, the colossal monster returns, furious, to guard its territory. As it roars toward the nest, Harkin hides behind a rock, relieved to have narrowly avoided being caught. Watching the beast, he realizes he can't keep searching with it back. With no choice, he decides to take the object, even if it isn't an egg. The scene shifts to Himbri, patiently awaiting the quest's outcome. The nest egg mission screen is displayed, its objective clear: bring back the egg without any listed reward. The scene returns to where several bodies lie fallen, scattered across the water. On the ground, one of the survivors coughs and writhes in pain. Harkin crouches with a smile and greets the man collapsed on the ground. He then comments on the freedom of the game while bringing a blade close to the man's neck. The man reacts in shock as he sees the weapon stabbing the ground right beside him. Harkin prepares to leave a clear message for the group. He explains that the game is over, since there is now too much at stake to continue playing around. That's why he warns that next time will not be so easy, sending a direct message to both the man and the woman. Soon after, he walks past the player, leaving him alone. Quickly, he leaps across the obstacles and leaves the place behind. He distances himself and decides that another attack will mean open war. With that resolve, his focus shifts to the need to earn extra money. Thus, he contacts the Banksud Guild and offers the location of a dragon lizard for 100,000 coins. The scene shifts to him placing the stone-like object on Himbri's table. Harkin then introduces himself and informs the mage that he has brought the requested item. With the hood covering part of his face, Harkin hopes that this is indeed the right item so he won't have to search anymore. Meanwhile, Himbri studies the object with complete focus, showing no immediate reaction. Tension builds in the air as Harkin waits for a definitive answer from the mage. With a faint smile, Himbri finally confirms that this was exactly what he expected to receive. The boy's eyes widen, surprised at the unexpected confirmation. Himbri states that it is indeed the item he was looking for and congratulates Harkin for the good work. Satisfied that he got it right, Harkin listens as the mage remarks that he was much faster than anticipated. Himbri continues, saying he thought someone like him would take longer, which leaves Harkin visibly irritated with the NPC. Ignoring the remark, he says he did his best and asks to quickly receive the next mission. Before continuing, the mage asks if Harkin knows what that object is. He explains that during research, this item was always found near monsters that had undergone mutation. With that, Himbri reveals that the temporary name given to the object is the Stone of Corruption. The revelation makes Harkin realize that this stone must be the reason why that group had been chasing him. The screen then explains that the Stone of Corruption is an important item directly linked to the main quest. Furthermore, it is revealed that their plan was to ensure someone else would obtain the item to alter the flow of the story. Harkin reflects that the rewardless mission, which had seemed like a scam, was in fact the beginning of the main quest. With a serious look, he formally apologizes to the mage for his earlier behavior. Himbri explains that he needed to test his willpower, since they are facing a powerful and unknown enemy. He then directly asks if Harkin is ready to fight against the corruption that plagues the world. Faced with the unique opportunity to join the main quest, Harkin affirms that he has more than enough willpower. Immediately, he begins to declare his full devotion to the cause, but Himbri interrupts, saying it is not yet the time. The mage apologizes, saying he should not hand over such an important mission to a beginner like him. Confused, the boy asks if his low level prevents him from continuing, trying to argue his case. With an exaggerated proposal, Himbri suggests that he might train him, if Harkin begs to become his disciple. The scene cuts to Harkin standing silently outside the room in front of the closed door. System notifications then confirm the mission's completion, a disciple title, and the beginning of the next stage. The memory of the previous scene embarrasses him, and he concludes that the mage is a huge swindler. The narrative then shifts to a dragon lizard in flames roaring amid an intense battle. Around the beast's carcass, the members of the Bangsu Guild celebrate the end of the fight and tend to the wounded. The guild captain rejoices at the great feat with his comrade and asks him to gather everyone after a rest. One guild member approaches the assistant to thank him, commenting that his strength had surpassed expectations. In the middle of the forest, the man in full armor turns when called by his companion. With a gesture, he adjusts his glasses and credits their success to the good support he received from the team. The guild member insists that his help was crucial to preventing deaths and admits it was worth hiring him. With a smile, he offers a sack of coins as a bonus for the excellent work. The assistant notes that this is not the promised payment, but the other explains that it's extra. Rejecting the offer, the armored man states firmly that he does not like breaking the rules. Surprised by the refusal, the guild member apologizes, confused by the situation. While the other remains baffled, the assistant turns and declares he will take all the items from the nest as agreed. Even when warned there is nothing of value there, he walks toward the place. In his thoughts, the man considers himself lucky for the unexpected chance to obtain the Stone of Corruption. He remembers being worried that the Haho mask had already completed the mission when he learned that the lizard had reappeared. Thus, he concludes that defeating a boss alone is not a simple task, and the other player must have failed. With a smile, he decides that all he needs to do is take the stone and prevent the Haho mask from completing his goal. Soon after, the assistant reaches the nest and finds it completely empty. Speechless, the man raises a hand to his head, frustrated at not finding what he sought. Then furious, he begins to shout at the spot. In the real world, An Jae-yeon sits in his dark room staring at his phone screen. With a determined look, he declares that the time has finally come to change things. The memory of his days of suffering flashes through his mind as he recalls the hope that life would improve. Clenching his fist, he declares that all that suffering ends now. Suddenly, he rises with determination and decides to celebrate by ordering meat. He glances around the room, explaining that now he can spend a little since he obtained the main quest. Having earned some extra money in the game, he decides to reward himself and converts the value to his account. The phone screen shows a deposit of more than 1 million, and he celebrates the balance, finally ready to eat meat. However, his balance is quickly drained by automatic deductions for debts, rent, and other bills. Seeing his final balance drop to only 856, he screams in despair, unable to afford food anymore. Collapsed on the floor, he laments being broke even after so much effort, until his phone vibrates. The screen shows 2 messages from Romani, asking if he is alive and if he has abandoned the video channel. Surprised, Jae-yeon grabs the phone and begins typing that he can't record anymore because he is being hunted. Before sending, he squeezes the phone tightly and pauses for a moment. He then asks himself if it's worth worrying about pursuers when he is about to starve in real life. With a gesture of frustration, he rises and decides he will no longer care about the consequences. Thus, he resolves to follow his own path, while the scene shifts to a dark cemetery under the night sky. Back in the game, Harkin advances through a shadowy forest accompanied by his skeletal warriors. Soon, a system notification informs him that he has entered the forest of the dead, and he smiles beneath the mask. Standing among the trees with his skeletons, Harkin remarks that the place remains frightening no matter how many times he comes. With a faint smile, he reflects that this is the best place to gain experience and also to draw attention to his videos. He then turns to his companions and announces that the hunt will begin, but that they need to do something first. Harkin introduces a new team member and warns that magic will now be part of their strategies. The screen displays the profile of the skeleton mage, a skill he received from Himbri that improves with use over time. He acknowledges that the skill is excellent but laments its high mana consumption before focusing on the day's hunt. Suddenly, a giant skeletal hand bursts from the ground right in front of the group, revealing their target. The monster rises completely, a level 33 skeleton with a threatening aura. As Harkin identifies the enemy, his skeletons seem confused by the creature's appearance. He turns to his companions and asks what they are doing just standing still. With a battle cry, the group prepares for the fight, receiving the order to hunt the enemy. Harkin observes a monster in the distance and explains that undead have different traits from normal creatures. However, he quickly notices that his skeletons are hiding behind tombstones instead of fighting. Irritated by their hesitation, he snaps his fingers and urges them on, saying there's no time to waste. With the final order to advance, the entire group leaps for the enemies to begin combat. One skeleton charges with its sword, but the strike passes through the enemy without causing any damage. The monster then turns to the attacker, who freezes in confusion at what just happened. Immediately after, the enemy tries to grab the skeleton, who reacts in shock. While the monster feels fear, Harkin explains that normal attacks don't work against this kind of creature. With that, he summons the mage's hammer, a rare item that increases the wielder's strength. Harkin spins his body and lands a powerful blow directly on one of the enemy skeletons. After the impact, he poses beside the monster's remains and celebrates the success of his strike. Turning to his companions, he points out that they must strike the enemy's head with the hammer. The skeletons respond by covering their own heads, leaving him confused at their reaction. He then reveals that the goal for the day is to hunt 100 skeletons in 100 minutes for a challenge video. With a subtle smile, he prepares to give the group an important warning. Harkin threatens to abandon them there if they fail to meet the goal, leaving them terrified. In a desperate tactic, the skeletons start ripping off and hurling their own heads to attack. He watches the scene satisfied with the result, while one of his skeletons retrieves its head. Certain that the video will be a hit, he decides he should contact Romani to let her know. A violent tremor shakes the ground, making Harkin prepare for what's coming. Moments later, a massive level 35 skeleton warrior emerges from the shadows. Surprised, he recognizes the creature as a rare monster that appears randomly. The image of an ox turning into a helmeted skull flashes through his mind. With that, Harkin orders his skeletons, his meat, to attack the enemy at once. While dodging, he starts wondering which meat dish he should eat first. Without time to think, the giant monster delivers a devastating vertical strike in his direction. The blow crashes into the ground with destructive force, obliterating everything around. From the shockwave, the skeletons are hurled away. After dodging, Harkin remarks that he nearly died before even managing to do anything. He notices that the monster damaged its own arm in the attack, which was his stroke of luck. Now Harkin braces for the next move as the enemy raises its weapon once more. He then charges with his skeletons, aiming a crushing blow at the monster's pelvis. The combined strike lands cleanly, making the enemy stagger. After the hit, Harkin asks if everyone is okay, and his skeletons respond with a thumbs-up gesture. As the enemy prepares to attack again, Harkin comments that the fight was easier than he expected. With a swift motion, the skeleton warrior launches a surprise strike at the group. Harkin dodges at the last second and calls the monster impatient for not waiting. He then reveals that he still has one last trick as his skeleton mage prepares to act. The mage channels a massive fireball and hurls it straight at the enemy. The explosion of flames engulfs the skeleton warrior completely. After the impact, notifications confirm the monster's defeat and the gain of experience. Looking at the creature's remains, he imagines the battle video will bring in at least 10,000 views. With victory secured, his hunger grows and he decides he'll grill some meat. Suddenly, a system notification reports that the area boss has detected the death of its subordinate. Immediately after, another message announces that the boss has located the intruders. A danger alert appears, warning that the field boss is awakening. A magic circle glows on the ground. Skeletal hands emerge from the circle's center, signaling the arrival of a new enemy. A massive lich with a crown rises from the ground, stunning Harkin and his skeletons. He is left utterly speechless at the unexpected appearance of the boss. The boss monster's profile is revealed. A level 40 golden skeleton, roaring imposingly. An information screen explains that he is the boss of the Forest of the Dead, known as the Novice Killer. Harkin then realizes that the condition for the boss to appear was defeating too many skeletons, something he hadn't considered. Even without certainty of victory, he considers the reward for defeating the monster would be immense. With a plan in mind to strengthen his skeletons, he charges forward to put the strategy into action. Halfway there, his advance is suddenly interrupted by smoke that envelops him. A system notification informs him that the summoning has been cancelled due to lack of mana, leaving him stunned. With his skeletons gone, he finds himself alone and utterly unprepared before the enemy. With his hand on his face, he laments having drained his mana after using so many spells with his 4 summoned skeletons. With no other option, he turns to face the massive golden skeleton completely alone. Wearing a confident smile, he looks at the item on his wrist and decides it's time to fight seriously for the first time. He then activates one of his hidden abilities with a voice command. A dark and intense aura of energy begins to envelop him completely. Standing before the boss, he prepares for the confrontation and signals for the battle to begin. Immediately after, he leaps forward in a direct attack against the golden skeleton. The boss reacts instantly and conjures a magic circle to defend against the strike. The creature clasps his hands together and fires a powerful burst of energy at the intruder. The energy splits into multiple projectiles, which Harkin narrowly dodges at the last moment. After the attack, he reflects that a single hit would be fatal and understands why the monster is called the Novice Killer. Harkin realizes he won't stand a chance if he allows the monster to keep casting its spells. Determined, he stomps firmly on the ground and prepares a new attack strategy. The plan is to stop the enemy from using abilities by targeting one of its hands. With a precise strike, he destroys the monster's hand, shattering the magic circle midair. The creature reacts in shock as one of its spells dissolves into fragments of energy. After landing, Harkin confirms that the floating hands are directly linked to the boss's magic. Thus, his only way to win the battle is to destroy all of the creature's hands. The boss then begins concentrating a new energy in its mouth, preparing a different attack. A system notification informs that the field boss is observing Harkin, leaving him puzzled. Next, the system warns that the boss has analyzed him and is measuring his skill level. The golden skeleton is then surrounded by a new aura, entering a new phase. The sudden change in the enemy's pattern leaves him confused about what is happening. A bright circular light begins to shine in front of the monster. Soon, A powerful energy beam fires, forcing Harkin to throw himself to the ground to dodge. Dragged by the attack's force, he struggles to resist, not understanding what kind of power is destroying the battlefield. As he is pulled across the ground, he realizes the beam of energy is about to catch him. The energy detonates right behind him, obliterating the surroundings with overwhelming force. The impact slams him hard into the ground, bouncing him before he finally stops. Collapsed and breathless, he struggles to recover from the blow he just took. He stares at the destruction, baffled by what he's witnessing. Then he realizes this is an attack pattern he doesn't remember. Harkin begins to question whether his memory is failing or if the monster has been updated. With a sigh, he admits he can't recall the details, since it has been such a long time. Gripping his weapon, he laments being without his skeletons, and with incomplete information about the enemy. Facing the boss, who prepares to attack again, he wonders how he can possibly win this fight. The monster launches another barrage of energy, and Harkin decides that for now, he'll simply do whatever he can. With this decision, he resolves to try everything possible to survive the clash. Soon, he begins dodging the multiple beams of energy with agility and precision. He realizes he can keep dodging as long as he predicts the trajectory of the attacks. However, the problem is that the relentless sequence gives him no opening to counterattack. As he evades, he decides he must find a blind spot to strike somehow. In the middle of a movement, he realizes he has made a mistake and can no longer dodge. One of the skeletal arms slams into him, sending him flying high into the air. Hurtling upward, he is launched straight toward the golden skeleton, who prepares to grab him. The boss seizes him with one of its massive hands and pulls him close for inspection. Even while captured, Harkin starts laughing at the situation he's in. Before him, the monster begins conjuring a new magic circle, making him wonder how many attack patterns exist. With a sly smile, he reveals that he also has an ace up his sleeve. He activates his skill and casts a curse directly onto the enemy. A system notification confirms that the target's attributes have been reduced by 13%. Taking advantage of the opportunity, he breaks free and dives toward the golden skeleton's skull. He thanks fate for the opening, as he had no idea how he'd find a chance to strike. As energy gathers within him, he feels grateful for the opportunity to finally counterattack. He then drives his weapon with all of his strength straight into the monster's chest. The impact triggers a massive explosion of energy that engulfs the boss entirely. As the boss's skull cracks apart, Harkin smiles, confirming the enemy's defeat. Moments later, the golden skeleton's body disintegrates completely on the battlefield. System notifications confirm the victory, granting experience, gold, a new title, and a level up. Smiling, he laughs at the challenging fight he just endured. He remarks that the battle was close and deactivates the special ability he had been using. Next, the status window displays his updated attributes as a level 36 necromancer. He celebrates enthusiastically, thrilled at reaching level 36 so quickly. Soon after, he realizes that relying on luck alone could be dangerous for his future plans. The main problem lies in his mana attribute, which, though not low, proves insufficient. An illustration of an overflowing pot that then dries up shows that his level can no longer sustain his mana consumption. He reflects that boosting his skeleton warrior's strength is pointless without them by his side. Frustrated, he laments needing better equipment but lacking the money to buy it. With a smile, he decides to set the problem aside for now. For the moment, his plan is to send the video to Romani, reach level 40, and celebrate with the meet Raymond. The scene ends with a close-up of his face, reaffirming his victory over the area boss. The cut then shifts to the battle video, paused on a close-up of Harkin's face. Sitting at her desk, Romani sighs as she finishes watching the recording she received. With a quick motion, she squeezes a stuffed animal tightly at her side. Then she leans forward and shouts, questioning whether the player who recorded that is insane. She jumps up in excitement, impressed that he defeated a higher-level boss without getting hit and without preparation. Satisfied, Romani drops back into her chair and decides to send out the final file since the video barely needs editing. As she types, she begins to think of a good title, such as The Man Who Commands Skeletons. With a determined look, she finally settles on the video's title, The Emperor of Solo Play. Far away, Harkin arrived at the Adventurers Association of Castle to collect his reward. Upon finding Embry, he told him that he had returned stronger, exactly as requested. The man was startled by his appearance and asked what had happened, but Harkin only demanded his reward. With a smile, Embry finally agreed to hand over the promised item. Harkin then received the skill book Osteology and a notification confirming that he had completed the quest. Just reading the name of the book left him completely paralyzed and stunned by what he saw. He soon discovered that the ultra-rare skill increased skeleton attributes while reducing mana costs. As he excitedly expressed his gratitude, a Himbri interrupted to announce there was still one more item. He revealed that he had used the stone to forge the ring of the corrupted tracker. The information screen showed that the ring boosted all attributes and had a set bonus. Harkin could barely form a word at what was happening. He realized this was the rare item given only to those who were the very first to complete the main quest. With desperate eagerness, Harkin rushed to snatch the ring as quickly as possible. At the last second, however, Himbri pulled back his hand and said he had reconsidered giving it away. He then simply turned and began to walk off, leaving Harkin confused. Mockingly, a Himbri challenged him to take it if he could, before suddenly running away. With a smirk, Herkin accepted the challenge without a moment's hesitation. A wild chase began with him vowing that the man was dead the moment he caught him. After finally cornering him, Herkin seized the ring and slipped it on immediately. Outside, he complained about the mage's attitude, saying he would have killed him if not for him being an NPC. A memory revealed that after the test, Hembry had given him a new quest at Suri Castle. Though furious, Herkin decided to let the mage's behavior slide just this once. With that, he resolved to level up along the way since the new area was a much higher level. At that moment, an urgent message from Romani appeared on his watch with a link. Opening the video, Herkin discovered already had millions of views and countless donations. The total amount raised then appeared, leaving him completely shocked. Startled, he stumbled backward and fell to the floor, unable to look away from the screen. As he checked the number, he began counting all the zeros to be sure of the value. Soon after, Herkin started imagining all the kinds of food he could buy with the money. The thought of being able to eat anything he wanted made him tremble, tears of joy welling in his eyes. With a victorious smile, Herkin wondered what kind of jackpot he had just hit. Before he could log out, a new donation notification popped up on his watch. Confused, he saw the message appear overlaid on the video screen. He soon realized it was a recruitment offer from the Thunder Hunters Guild. The mere mention of the guild instantly reminded him of Chase Cialian. He then recalled how persistent they had been in his past life. Herkin shouted that he would never join that guild, not even if his life depended on it. Then he froze, realizing he had said those exact same words in the past. The memory of that whole situation filled him with anger. In a flashback, he complained to his old companions about the guild's persistence. One member of the group called him lucky, since it was one of the top 30 guilds. The others agreed, noting that its leader came from a wealthy family and the salary would be huge. Another companion remarked that even in their guild's videos, people only ever talked about Herkin. With a sad smile, he admitted that honestly, Herkin was far too good for their group. Uneasy, Herkin begged his friend to stop talking like that. Within the memory, Herkin said he didn't care about the salary because his guild would become the strongest. He declared he'd rather keep playing his current guild, leaving his companion silent. Finally, the companion agreed with a forced smile, saying Herkin was right. Back in the present, Herkin reflected on everything that had happened since that day. Regretfully, he muttered that they didn't have to stab him in the back over it. With a sharp gesture, he slapped his own face to snap out of it. Soon, Herkin convinced himself it wasn't the time to lose his mind over money. As he got up, he reminded himself there was still much work ahead before he could feel satisfied. With a new plan, he decided he would use every bit of the money he had earned. Energy surged into his hands as he prepared for the next step. Moments later, his 4 skeletons appeared before him. Turning to his summons, he reminded them that they had done everything in the fight against the Golden Skeleton. He then announced that training would begin today so they wouldn't repeat what happened last time. He stared at them and asked directly if they could handle it. Another memory struck him, of an old companion asking him to go easy on them since they were different from him. The skeletons responded to his question with a unified pose of determination. With a resolute look, Herkin told himself he was right about his decision. A confident smile spread across his face as he declared that this time, things would be different. Alongside his summons, he began walking toward his goal of becoming the strongest. Now clad in new armor, Herkin informed his skeletons that their next destination was Suri Castle. As the skeletons nodded, he suggested they should train along the way. With a grin, he explained that the training was simple. They would just run there. Immediately after, Herkin warned that anyone who fell behind would get beaten, as he chased his skeletons in a frenzy. The chaotic run continued across the mountains, the skeletons fleeing while Herkin laughed in pursuit. In a distant hall, Seer sat in silence with a thoughtful expression. A hooded mage approached and asked what she was thinking about. The camera pulled back to reveal Seer sitting atop the carcass of a giant hydra. The mage, named Hatch, informed her that the time for the meeting was drawing near. As she climbed down, Seer asked about the progress of the corrupted count, but learned there were still no leads. She grew angry, unable to believe they had let the Hydra Guild take the main quest. Hatch then said they might learn something at the meeting with the leaders of the top 30 guilds, but Seer dismissed the idea. Even so, he only urged her to be careful out there before leaving. Moments later, someone addressed her as Guild Master as she walked through an imposing doorway. Meanwhile, Herkin begins a retrospective, recalling how the video became a success. The sudden popularity made him rich overnight, shocking him with the amount. The memory shows him nearly losing control of thinking about how much food he could buy. Soon after, he remembers how the message from the Thunder Hunters reignited his flame of vengeance. With that, he resolved to walk the path of a starving beast, starting with his first great step. In the real world, An Jae-hyun slammed a heavy backpack full of cash onto a man's desk. He informed the frightened man that he had brought the full debt, plus interest and cash. Staying atop a pile of money, Jae-hyun finally paid off his debt and rid himself of the problem. Immediately after, he used the rest of his profits to purchase rare skill books. Back in the game, Herkin wore his satisfied smile, pleased to have executed his plans. Yet in the same moment, he began crying when he saw his bank balance had completely emptied. Even though he was prepared for it, he admitted to his skeletons that seeing the zeros still hurt. With that, he decided to forget about the money and focus on learning the new skills he had bought. Using one of the books, he finally learned the skill skin grafting. The information screen revealed that this new passive ability increased his defense. Excited, Herkin immediately tested it using the skeleton warrior's horns. As soon as the skill activated, he absorbed the essence of a skeleton warrior and gained a defense bonus. With his hand glowing, he examined the effects of the newly acquired power on his body. He then materialized an energy sword and tested it with a single swift strike. While his skeletons looked on nervously, he reassured them it was fine and worked better than expected. With the first test done, Herkin moved on to the next skill book. He quickly acquired Curse of Sloth, a spell that slowed down its targets. Herkin paused to reflect on the usefulness of the slowing skill. One of the skeletons tilted its head in confusion, unsure what was happening. After testing the curse on one of his summons, he concluded it would be extremely helpful in battle. With that, Herkin finally picked up the last and most anticipated skill book. He then learned the ability Summon Golem, the hardest to obtain and the one he wanted most. At once, the ground before him began trembling and violently breaking apart. Herkin and his skeletons watched as chunks of rock floated into the air. Before their eyes, the stones merged together and formed a towering golem. Overjoyed, Herkin hugged one of his skeletons and celebrated the arrival of the golem. A smug grin then appeared on his face as he prepared for the next demonstration. With a quick command, he activated the golem's copy mode, making its energy eye glow. In that instant, a stream of energy connected Herkin to the stone creature. He explained that copy mode allowed him to synchronize his movements with the golem. Clenching his fist, Herkin declared that the combination of his power and the golem's was unstoppable. He threw a quick punch into the air to demonstrate how effective the ability could be. The golem mimicked the motion, but froze in the punching pose without doing anything. As the skeletons looked confused, Herkin wondered why the ability wasn't working. Baffled, he questioned if it might be some kind of bug in the game system. Suddenly, the golem slowly raised its massive arm into the air. It then executed the punch in slow motion, and Herkin asked if that was really its maximum speed. He began laughing nervously, unsure what to do in that situation. In a fit of rage, he threw himself onto the ground, screaming that the game was trash and pure pay-to-win. Far away, a mysterious voice declared in a dark place that everyone had arrived. The voice then asked if they could begin the meeting, revealing a room with projections of several leaders. Nurgle, leader of the Heirs Guild, opened the discussion by thanking everyone who had attended. With a smile, Madamada, leader of the Red Bulls Guild, remarked that he saw some familiar faces there. Meanwhile, Berg, leader of the Big Smile Guild, only observed the situation in silence. Seer, leader of the Thunder Hunters, also sat quietly, showing no reaction. Berg soon complained that only 4 of the 29 invited had shown up, but Matador said it was more than he expected. With that, Nurgle remarked that the situation was unusual for a meeting of the top 30 guilds. He explained that the groups were usually locked in fierce competition and rarely gathered like this. The reason became clear when he announced that the Hydra Guild had discovered the identity of the corrupted count. Matador reacted with shock, slamming his fist on the table, since no other guild had come close to that discovery. Berg erupted, shouting that Hydra would monopolize the main quests if they captured the Count. The argument was abruptly cut short when Seer coldly ordered him to shut up. With an intimidating glare, she told him to stay quiet if he was afraid, and warned him not to anger her. Infuriated, Berg challenged her to a fight, manifesting energy in his hand. At once, Matador and Nurgle stepped in to calm them, reminding both that fighting would only benefit Hydra. Once the situation was under control, Nurgle finally proposed forming an anti-Hydra alliance. He explained that the 4 guilds must vow not to fight each other and to share information on the corrupted count. After a moment of hesitation, they all agreed there was no choice but to accept. Seer then ended her participation in the meeting, her projection fading into silence. Back in the real world, Chisielian stepped into the shower. As the water streamed down, she thought about how humiliating the entire situation was. She grew frustrated at having to ally with other guilds just to defeat the first boss. Even so, she turned off the shower, knowing there was nothing else she could do for now. Once dressed, she reminded herself that everything would be lost if Hydra reached the Count first. Regaining her composure, she decided it was time to wait for the next opportunity and picked up her phone. On a call, she ordered all guild members to watch Hydra and report any movement. With a determined look, Seer swore that the corrupted Count would be hers, no matter the cost. Far away, Herkin finally arrived at the Adventurers Association of Surya Castle for his mission. After speaking with the NPC, he reacted in shock, asking what the man had just said. The man calmly repeated that he had asked Herkin to go to the Bilbora Forest. He explained that Agent Miggy had disappeared there and asked him to search for traces, but Herkin hesitated. He remembered that the forest was crawling with level 70 monsters and areas so dangerous he would be killed instantly. Even so, the man pressed him, reminding him that he was Himbry's pupil and warning him about refusing the quest. With that, he revealed that Herkin would lose his corrupted tracker status, leaving him speechless. As the bell of the clock tower rings in the background, the city carries on with its day as usual. Outside the association, Herkin sits by a fountain, completely dejected by the situation. With his hands on his head, he laments and decides to open the quest window to check the details. The screen confirms that the penalty for not finding Miggy in time is the loss of the corrupted tracker title. In a burst of rage, he shouts that he'll be expelled from the main quest if he loses the status and complains about the difficulty level. Immediately after, Herkin realizes that taking quests above his level has finally caught up with him. He recalls how he managed to complete previous quests and progress through the main storyline. With that, he understands that this time he received a quest intended for level 60 players or higher. Unsure of what to do, he faces a dilemma. He can't abandon the quest, but he also can't go into the forest. Soon, he overhears nearby players talking about how Hydra Guild will complete the main quest first. One of the players suddenly pauses and raises a question about what would happen to the other quests if the count were defeated. The question gives Herkin a revelation about the outcome. With a sly smile, he realizes he's found the solution to his problem. A wicked grin spreads across his face as he concludes he won't need to step into the Boboro forest. Far away, someone observes a castle through a spyglass, noting that nothing special has happened that day. One of the lookouts complains to his partner that the mission is finally coming to an end, as he was going crazy from watching so long. The man then calls out to Nadal, who continues staring at the castle through binoculars. The first lookout begins fantasizing about the rewards for capturing the corrupted count, but Nadal scolds him. He reminds him that their mission isn't over yet, and they must continue monitoring the castle in secret. Nadal insists they cannot let their guard down, that true professionals know how to stay calm. Suddenly, a man bursts out of the forest shouting that he has found Nadal from Hydra Guild. The newcomer, Kim's ranked top 3 in the Red Bulls Guild, greets them cheerfully. Confused, Nadal points at him and asks what a Red Bulls member is doing there. With a smile, Kim's explains that he came to defeat the mountain's boss monster and asks if they were too. Nadal stammers before reluctantly confirming, even though it isn't true. Kim steps closer and asks if he's feeling alright, which Nadal vehemently denies. Kim then waves goodbye, telling him to relax, while Nadal yells after him that it's not what he thinks. As Kim strolls away casually, Nadal begins arguing with his fellow lookout. At a safe distance, Kim stops walking and activates his watch to send a message. Smiling, he confirms that Hydra's 8th in command is on site and that the tip was real. Upon receiving the message, Madarashev and Yell look at the screen in shock. Yell comments that she was sure the anonymous tip about the location was just a prank. Matador then wonders why anyone would give away such important information for free. He reminds her they're in no position to question it since they're on the verge of losing everything to Hydra. Meanwhile, Kim suggests starting a fight to buy time for their guild, but Matador orders him to retreat, reasoning that most of Hydra's forces must be concentrated there. Kim chuckles, saying he was just trying to compliment him. Before he can finish, a figure descends from the sky at high speed. An enormous explosion of energy slams into the ground with full force. The shockwave makes the base tremble, leaving Matador and Yell completely shaken. Amid the smoke, Kim realizes they weren't the only ones who received the tip. Before him, the princess of the Thunder Hunters Guild emerges with her sword drawn. With a deadly smile, Hadwi threatens to kill him and demands he reveal everything he knows. Far away, Herkin's golem finally encounters a massive bear monster in the forest. Without hesitation, the creature charges and lands a devastating blow on the golem. With a swift motion, the golem manages to block the strike with its stone arm. At that moment, the creature's eye flashes brightly before its next attack, seizing the opening and delivers a powerful punch directly into the monster. After the strike, the two stare each other down in a clearing, while the skeletons simply watch. From above, Herkin and the skeletons observe the fight as though watching a movie. While the battle unfolds, he checks his messages, puzzled by the unusual silence. Even without replies, Herkin is certain his emails were sent and that he should have received an answer by now. He reminds himself that the only way to solve the problem without going to the forest was simple: to force the quest to end, making it disappear from his path. A help screen then explains that the game's main quest is divided into several chapters. It shows that the current chapter is the corrupted count. Once the boss is defeated, the chapter closes, and all related quests are cancelled. Herkin realizes he won't be able to defeat the count in time and prefers to move on to the next chapter. For that reason, he spread the information to several guilds, but he wonders why no one has replied. Suddenly, a notification appears announcing that Hydra Guild's official channel has started a live broadcast. At that moment, a piece of the golem's stone hand falls to the ground. His only reaction is to stare silently at it lying there. Before him, the giant bear prepares to attack once again. Suddenly, Herkin leaps from the tree and tells the bear to shut up with a direct punch to the head. With the monster defeated, he orders his summons to stay quiet while he watches the broadcast. Herkin and his skeletons sit down to watch the live stream, which begins with a greeting to the viewers. A Hydra member proudly announces that they were the first to discover the Count's identity and that they are planning a raid. He prepares to announce the exact date of the final battle. With a desperate expression, Herkin prays for the raid date to be within the same month. In that instant, the announcement reveals the battle will take place in just a few days, leaving everyone in shock. With a sly smile, he concludes that although it happened earlier than expected, everything is going exactly as he predicted. A moment of silence passes as he processes the good news. Then he can't contain himself and bursts out laughing at the situation, finding it all delightful. Meanwhile, the intense battle between the golem and the bear continues deep in the forest. From the tree branch, Herkin comments that the rushed date was due to Hydra Guild's anxiety after the information leak. He reassures himself that there's nothing to worry about since Hydra is the most advanced and skilled guild. As soon as the main quest is completed, he believes his happy life will finally begin. Suddenly, a Hydra Guild member screams in pain as he falls defeated to the ground. Immediately after, a failure notification pops up on the screen announcing that all Hydra members have died. In the real world, An Jae-hyun, who had been watching the broadcast, is utterly shocked by what he sees. So surprised, he throws his phone onto the table without even realizing it. In a fit of rage, he shouts that the guild should have planned better instead of failing within just an hour. Collapsed on the floor, the young man wonders if he had overestimated the guild and if he now needs alternatives. At that moment, a notification appears on his phone announcing that Red Bull's guild has started a live stream. Reading the message, he remembers ManhwaCapped and begins to suspect what's about to happen. Far away, ManhwaCapped watches the battlefield restore itself and concludes that Hydra has failed the raid. With a stern look, he turns and asks his soldiers if they saw what just happened. He reminds them that the enemy is strong enough to wipe out Hydra and that their own chances of success are slim. Even with the odds stacked against them, he drives his sword into the ground in a gesture of sheer determination. Then, with pride, Manhwa declares that Red Bull's guild will accept the challenge. Immediately, all the soldiers shout in support and raise their weapons in a war cry. Back in the real world, the young man watches the stream, wondering if they'll start the raid right away. His attention is fully captured when the host of the live stream announces a partner for the raid. On the battlefield, a woman approaches the army as she's introduced as the master of the Thunder Hunters Guild. Thus, the Queen of Thunder, Seer, is presented and joins the Red Bulls for the attack. The revelation leaves the young man speechless, unable to believe what he's seeing. The image of Chae-seolian then appears on screen, confirming the unexpected alliance between the two guilds. At night, outside the castle, Red Bull's guild sets up camp for the mission. Watching the preparations, ManhwaCapped murmurs to himself that the situation is truly unexpected. He recalls the moment Seer arrived, never having expected her to ask for a meeting. He asked her she was there to declare war, but Seer denied it and reminded him of the alliance. With a smirk, Manhwa mentioned he heard one of her men got beaten badly. Seer brushed it off, saying it was nothing, that it was just their way of greeting each other. She quickly changed the subject, saying they should get straight to business. With a serious look, Seer declared that she heard he had information about the corrupt account. Manhwa tried to deny it, but she cut him off, saying she didn't have time for his games. She revealed she already confirmed that several of the top 30 guilds received the same tip. Seer accused him, saying even an idiot would notice he'd gotten a clue, since he hadn't even been able to track the count before. Cornered, Manhwa admitted she was right, but claimed he didn't know who leaked the information. With a smile, Seer pressed forward with another question. Did he think Hydra Guild would succeed? He admitted he wasn't sure, but she confidently assured him they would fail. She explained that Hydra had rushed the raid and that the first boss of the main quest wouldn't be so easy to defeat. With a suspicious look, Manhwa asked about her true intentions, since she clearly wasn't there just because of Hydra. A confident smile appeared on Seer's face before her next move. Suddenly, she lunged forward and struck with her sword, slamming it into the table. She then revealed her proposal, that they should work together in the raid against the Count. With her sword in hand, she promised to guarantee him the first kill against the boss. He recalled the promise, thinking at the time it was just a bluff. Now clad in full armor, Manhwa recognized that things had turned out exactly as expected. He watched her fight and admitted she had the skills to deliver on her promise. In the midst of battle, the corrupted Count appeared, mocking them by congratulating them for not being too bad for amateurs. The boss then vowed to crush their will and summon a horde of grotesque monsters. As the monsters arrived, the soldiers cried out to hold the line at all costs amid the chaos. Seeing his forces reaching their limit, Manhwa resolved to act. On the other side, Seer also realized the monsters seemed endless and braced herself for the fight. With that, Manhwa charged forward, preparing a mighty strike with his sword. Pouring all his strength into it, he shouted to the Queen of Thunder that he would carve a path for her. With the way cleared, Seer raised her sword and seized the chance to charge at the boss. In the blink of an eye, she shot forward at high speed toward the corrupted Count. The boss roared in fury at her boldness and lashed out with his tentacles, but Seer dodged them all with flawless agility. With a focused look, she pressed on, closing the distance to her target. She managed to land behind the Count, preparing for the final strike. With a smile, she declared the battle was finally over. Her confidence vanished instantly as she realized something was wrong. Suddenly, one of the tentacles pierced through her from behind, catching her completely off guard. Seeing it, ManhwaCapped screamed her name in despair and shock. Even wounded, Seer remained standing, blood dripping from her mouth. The Count unleashed another attack, sending multiple tentacles in her direction. With eyes blazing with fury, she prepared to counter without hesitation. In one last effort, she delivered a vertical slash that cleaved through the Count and all of his tentacles. Watching the scene, ManhwaCapped laughed and commented on what he had just witnessed. With the corrupted Count at their feet, Matador admitted she was far more terrifying than he had imagined. In the real world, the news of the guild's victory left the young man stunned as he read the notification on his phone. A look of pure determination appeared on his face immediately after, showing no emotion. Setting aside his surprise, he stood and declared that it didn't matter who had defeated him as long as the Count was dead. Turning toward his bed, the young man muttered that the corrupted Count would be her last victory. With his fist clenched, he steeled himself for what was to come on his journey. He then declared with conviction that he would be the ultimate victor in the end. Herkin's new journey begins in an autumn setting in the Bulkas Mountains. With that, An Jae-hyun, known in the game as Herkin, takes his first step into the new territory. Alongside his skeletons, he advances like a player who somehow reincarnated inside the game. His greatest dream was to become the strongest and take revenge on those who betrayed him. Yet he wonders why certain things keep happening to him. Moments later, Herkin and his skeletons are shown running desperately from a horde of boar monsters. Hours earlier, he had finally arrived at his destination after a long journey. Before him and his summons, a field of energy blocked the entrance to the Bulkas Mountains. With a confused skeleton at his side, Herkin explained that the entrance was restricted until a certain condition was met. Touching the barrier, he demonstrated how the force field prevented anyone from passing. With a sly smile, he revealed that he already knew exactly what to do. Herkin recalled that the Bulkas Mountains were the location of the main quest for Chapter 2. As soon as the Count's quest was completed, the barrier dissolved, granting him entry into the new territory. Immediately, he received the title, the first to step into the Bulkas Mountains, and a stat bonus. Satisfied, Herkin turned to his summons and called them to begin the exploration at last. From that moment, Herkin prepared to finally shine in the new territory. With that, he charged into a horde of boars, declaring that it was his time to shine. The information screen revealed that the ferocious monsters were level 60 wild boars. At that instant, he realized the massive power gap. It was only level 41. In front of him, the level 60 wild boar prepared to charge with fury. The nearly 20 level difference left him frozen in shock. Back in the present, the horde of boars rushed at him with full force. Cornered, he cursed his bad luck for encountering this right at the start of the new territory. Even with such low odds, he decided he had to try. He couldn't afford to waste time. To handle the situation, Herkin leaped and ordered his skeletons to activate their helmet skill. Without hesitation, the leading wild boar charged with a roar. With a single strike, the monster shattered one of the skeleton warriors and sent Herkin flying with the impact. A notification confirmed that the skeleton warrior had been destroyed, shocking him with the sheer power of the blow. Then a smirk appeared on his face as he revealed his true plan. The skeleton had only been bait, giving him the chance to cast Curse of Sloth on the monster. With the horde paralyzed, Herkin told them they wouldn't be able to move for about 5 seconds. He materialized his energy sword and prepared to strike. Charging forward, he shouted that it was time for them to pay for destroying his skeleton. Halfway there, however, his foot slipped on a banana peel lying on the ground. He lost his balance and was thrown headfirst into the boar horde. Unable to recover, he crashed face first into the dirt with the peel stuck to his hood. Completely confused, Herkin lifted his head and spotted a figure perched in a tree. He quickly discovered it was a level 50 armored monkey, a monster that enjoyed playing pranks. His expression changed instantly as he realized what had just happened. As the curse's effect ended, he jumped to his feet and shouted for the monkey to come back. Before he could act, one of the boars charged at him, leaving him trapped. Suddenly, a beam of energy struck the monster head-on, disintegrating it on impact. The force of the blast pushed him back, and soon he saw several energy spears flying from the trees. A rain of projectiles crashed down on the horde, exploding in a chain of blasts. Completely stunned, he realized the entire horde had been wiped out in a single strike. A voice called out, asking if he was hurt, as a figure approached him while he lay on the ground. Lifting his eyes, Herkin saw a mysterious man carrying a bow on his back. Far away, life carried on as usual in the bustling Surya castle. While walking through the city, one adventurer pointed out something that caught his attention. They soon spotted a man standing still, wearing the expensive white mamba armor set. The man adjusted his glasses while the others wondered if he might be a ranked player. With a smirk, he asked if they had discovered the identity of the informant yet. Suddenly, Michael emerged from the shadows, reporting that none of the guilds knew who had leaked the information. The man questioned how anyone could find someone who had given away such valuable intel for free. He then asked about the Haho mask, but Michael replied that he had only been posting hunting videos. Hearing the answer, he dismissed the idea that a novice was behind it all. Michael asked where he was headed next, and the man replied that he was going to the Sweepers Guild. She assured him she would handle the assistant work so he could focus on finding the culprit. The man clenched his fist tightly and vowed that the one responsible would pay. With shining eyes, he declared that the guilty party would pay for destroying the balance of the world. After the unexpected encounter, Herkin was taken by the mysterious man to a secluded cabin in the forest. Handing him a book, the man asked if he was Himbri's disciple, and Herkin confirmed with a smile. Thrilled, he realized he had found Mei Wong, the main NPC of Chapter 2's questline. As they drank, Mei Wong explained that by chance he had found Herkin during his patrols in the region. A memory revealed that he had once been the prince's fencing instructor, but was expelled after an unfortunate event. After that, he became captain of the rangers who protected the Bulkas Mountains. Herkin considered himself lucky. but his thoughts were interrupted when Mo Wong told him to leave. Confused, he asked why, and the man explained that there was nothing there but monsters. Mei Wong advised him to return before something worse happened. With a smirk, Herkin revealed that the corrupt account was already dead. He said there was no use pretending otherwise, as he already knew how to access Chapter 2 and that corrupted monsters were still nearby. Herkin explained he had tracked the cause of the problem there and asked if Mei Wong knew anything. Mei Wong admitted he had someone in mind, but no solid evidence yet. When invited to help gather proof, Herkin received 2 new titles and a stat bonus. Overcome with excitement, he grabbed Mei Wong and begged to know what to do next, but the man only asked him to calm down. The quest screen then appeared with Mei Wong's first request, to investigate the monsters in the area by defeating 50 of them. Outside the cabin, Herkin prepared to begin the monster hunt. He celebrated the new task, since he needed to level up anyway. He decided to leave the stronger monsters for later and start with the easier ones. Suddenly, an idea came to him, and he remembered a particular target. With a vengeful grin, and he wondered what would be the best way to get back at the armored monkey. Hey everyone, did you enjoy this story? I really liked it. If you want to follow the next part, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. See you in the next story, guys.